Chapter 3356. The Palace Master of Netherworld Palace. Although she couldn't see his expression, but Yiqing Luo sensed his gaze from him. All of them revealed the same message. Are you a little stupid? Was there such a person who would steal someone else's corner so openly? How much confidence did she have that she could pry him away? Yiqing Luo smiled. She didn't really want the Palace Master of Secluded Darkness Palace to betray them. He knew so much about the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Her identity was the Palace Master of the Dark Palace on the surface. How could he bear to leave the Palace of Darkness? Moreover, she had no way of knowing the relationship between the Palace Master of Darkness Palace on the surface and the person behind Darkness Palace. They did not expect him to betray them at all. His words were just a test. He wanted to test if the real mastermind was here. However, from the performance of the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace, that person, he shouldn't be here. Although the person in front of him wasn't the real Palace Master of the Secluded Darkness Palace. However, his strength was also above hers. He should be someone from the upper realm. She might not even be able to handle him, not to mention the person behind the scenes. He knew that the real mastermind was not here. Yiqing Luo could rest assured and find a breakthrough point for him to get DMO Xian back. Or send her to DMO Xian. Yiqing Luo believed that with DMO Xian's strength, he would not be trapped. But it was obvious that the other party had purposely set a trap for DMO Xian. She would still worry and be afraid. At least, she had to be safe and sound until DMO Xian returned. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, tried her best to make her expression look calm and indifferent. However, before she could open her mouth again, intending to get more information about the Dark Nether Palace from him, suddenly, he felt a cold breeze on his cheek. Yiqing Luo seemed to have a reflex reaction as she evaded the attack, and the palm wind fell downwards. "Bitch, I want you dead." Hao Nanren's hysterical roar came into her ears at the moment when Yiqing Luo's palm wind descended. He didn't evade at all. Instead, he faced Yiqing Luo's palm wind and pressed forward. Hao Nanren's profound grade was sealed by Yiqing Luo's pills. All that was left was brute force. At some point in time, a dagger had appeared in his hand. Facing Yiqing Luo's palm wind, the dagger in his hand stabbed fiercely towards Yiqing Luo's body. Yiqing Luo retaliated out of reflex. With how much Hao Nanren cherished his life, he would definitely avoid it. She had never expected that Hao Nanren would disregard everything and try to kill her. The palm hit Hao Nanren's chest, but the dagger in his hand also stabbed towards Yiqing Luo's body. Yiqing Luo had not expected this. When the dagger fell, it was also too late to dodge. Damn it! Suddenly, he heard a low reprimand. She felt her body lighten. She was pulled back a little. The pain that he had imagined did not fall. After Yiqing Luo steadied herself, she raised her eyes to take a look. Immediately, he was stunned on the spot. In front of her was the Palace Master of the Dark Abyss Palace, who was dressed in a black robe and whose face couldn't be seen. His hand was gripping the dagger with his bare hand. The sharp edge of the blade cut his palm. Blood oozed out, and that Hao Nanren, who was about 200 over kilograms, was also sent flying. "You?" Yiqing Luo pursed her lips as her thoughts ran wild. The words that were in her mouth couldn't come out. What on earth was going on? Had this world become a fantasy? Why? Would the Palace Master of the Dark Abyss Palace block this dagger for her with his bare hand? Master MO is taking part in the QQ Readings April Book Comments section activity. I hope that the babies are able to actively participate and help Master MO and 7th Miss to fight for a ranking. The activity content was as follows. These were the tasks that the activity had assigned and must be completed by Master MO in the QQ Reading App 1. Master MO will post a book comments post in the book comments section, hoping that the babies will actively like and reply to, hoping that the babies will actively leave a comment in the book comment section and interact with. Master MO will reply one by one and will add more details according to the content. 3. For the latest chapter, I hope that the babies will leave a comment. Every comment and comment will also be counted as a ranking of points for QQ Readings, Great God Said. Master Mo will adjust to 10 book coins per question. After Master Mo answers, I hope that the babies will leave a comment under the Great God's comment and interact with Master Mo. Master Mo likes to research on pseudo sounds and is not a professional pseudo student. You can try to answer the baby's questions with a mature sister's voice, Lolita's voice, and young girl's voice. The babies can casually tease Master Mo. Master Mo had always said that the continuation of a book was not only due to Master Mo's efforts alone. Along the way, the baby's support and love were indispensable in this activity, not to mention the top 10 or top 3. As long as we are not at the bottom, we will not let down your support and love for 7th Miss, and will not let you down. That is enough. No matter what the result is, this is a glory that belongs to all of us. Chapter 33:57. After the shock and astonishment. Yiqing Luo reflexively congealed her expression as she looked at the palace lord alertly and asked coldly, "What tricks are you trying to play now?" Heh. The palace lord scoffed as he slowly raised his head and looked at his hand, which was filled with blood. Following that, he casually threw the dagger onto the ground. The dagger, which was stained with blood, made a clang sound as it landed on the ground, which was littered with bones. He shook his bleeding hand as he gave a mocking smile. "This palace saved you, and your words are really hurtful." "Saved?" Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as her expression turned increasingly vigilant. "Are you trying to play the trick of injuring yourself? Trying to use this to move me so that I will listen to your arrangements?" The palace master of Netherworld Palace suddenly stopped talking. Even his swaying hand froze, not sure if it was an illusion. Yiqing Luo somehow felt that there was a deathly stillness coming from him. Which sentence was it that had stabbed him this time? Yiqing Luo felt that this man was really hard to get along with. Why did she feel that every sentence he said could step on his minefield? Yiqing Luo felt very tired. Suddenly, the palace lord raised his head as though he sensed something as he raised his hand towards Yiqing Luo's arm. Yiqing Luo instinctively evaded. "What are you trying to do?" "You." His hoarse voice just spat out a word. Just at this moment, a few loud bang, bang, bang sounds were heard as the entire graveyard was suddenly bombarded. The ground shook as a small crack appeared. Yiqing Luo's body couldn't stop shaking. It was at this instance that he grabbed her wrist tightly. Yiqing Luo didn't manage to shake it off in time. Her body suddenly tightened. The palace lord pulled her along as he sprinted madly towards another direction. His other hand, which was still dripping blood, hung by the side of his body. Blood flowed as it dripped onto the ground. "What are you going to do?" Yiqing Luo hadn't figured out where did that explosion sound came from as she was pulled along by him as they ran with all their might. She panted lightly as she spat out 3 words. She could feel a strong, vast, and majestic dark force eroding the entire graveyard. It made her feel a suffocating feeling. What was this energy? What was going on? Damn it. Too late. He could vaguely hear the hoarse voice of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace reprimanding him. Then, halted by his sudden movement, she bumped into his broad, hard back. Her entire face was smashed into his back. Yiqing Luo didn't have the chance to rebuke, because she covered her mouth and nose, and the moment she raised her head, they saw a figure dressed in a black robe, the same as the palace master of the Dark Palace, standing before them. Looking at the figure, it should be the physique of a man. His black robe fluttered even though there was no wind. His robe fluttered wildly, like a sharp blade baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, as if wanting to devour everything. That majestic and powerful aura. It was released from this person's body. Yiqing Luo's expression changed slightly. Who was this person? It actually had such a powerful aura. Furthermore, this person's strength was definitely on par with the palace master of Gloomy Palace. She could not sense the aura of the palace master of the Nether Palace. That was because the palace master of Gloomy Palace had purposely concealed his aura. However, the person in front of him was different. That unbridled and arrogant arrogance. Majestic and powerful, boundless and boundless. It was just this pressure, It was enough to oppress her until she was almost out of breath. Chapter 33:58. The palace lord's figure stiffened as he bellowed in a deep and cold voice. The overlord has already followed the original plan and entered the dark array. How did I spoil it? That man's head moved. Yiqing Luo could feel that the gaze which was shot over from that man was as cold as a knife. That man asked, "Where do you want to bring her to?" The palace lord's aura turned gloomier and gloomier as his voice became even tighter. "I naturally want to bring her back to the Palace of Darkness." His words paused as he seemed to be impatient as he frowned. "Since when is it your turn to tell me what to do? If I don't come, do you think that you can still keep your life?" That man scoffed coldly as his tone had no respect towards the palace lord at all. Yiqing Luo could tell. Although the palace master of the Netherworld Palace kept on saying, this palace master of the Netherworld Palace didn't say anything. But in actual fact, towards that man, he was obviously on his guard and apprehensive, since he was the palace lord of the palace on the surface. In the Palace of Darkness, other than the real mastermind, who else did he need to be wary of? But it was very obvious. The man in front of him was definitely not the mastermind. After hearing that man's words, the palace lord's body tensed up even more. That hand which was dripping with blood was clenched tightly. When Yiqing Luo saw that, the uneasiness in her heart grew even more. If it was this palace lord, she would be able to feel slightly more at ease, because she could feel it. This palace lord didn't have any special evil intentions. But the man in front of her was different. The aura around his body was purposely released towards her. Furthermore, it was filled with malicious intent. Even though she couldn't see his face, she could also feel his bone-piercing gaze. "Your mission has ended. I'll handle the rest." That man opened his mouth once again as his voice was as cold as ice. The figure which was blocking in front of Yiqing Luo stiffened once again, but didn't leave. "This is my mission. It should be completed by me. Just based on you. When will you be able to bring this woman back?" That man was filled with disdain. "Anyway, as long as she's left with one breath, it's not important how I bring her back." As soon as he finished speaking, a burst of chilling aura charged towards Yiqing Luo's direction in a domineering and overbearing manner. It was an irresistible pressure. This caused Yiqing Luo's expression to change unpredictably. At the bottom of his heart, a wave of shock surged up. This person he really wanted to kill. Yiqing Luo swiftly raised her glower flame fan, and her footwork was about to display her intention to retreat from behind the palace lord of secluded Darkness Palace. However, the force gripping her wrist tightened its grip on her. She couldn't escape at all. Damn it! There was no way to avoid this powerful dark force. He could only take it head-on. However, the man who was holding her arm suddenly waved his sleeve. Majestic, profound waves spread out in all directions. It collided with that person's ferocious attack. The man growled, "I don't need you. This is my prey." Bang, bang, bang. The two forces collided in the air. Profound waves vibrated. Severed limbs and dried bones flew everywhere in the graveyard. The three of them stood steadily in the midst of this chi wave. No, to put it more accurately, Yiqing Luo was forcefully pulled by the palace lord of secluded Darkness Palace so that she wouldn't be sent flying after the collision of the two forces. But her internal organs weren't feeling well. Chapter 33:59. The palace lord straightened his back as his voice turned cold. "Are you trying to fight with me?" That man sneered. "I'm saving you. I don't need it." The palace lord replied decisively. "I know very well what I'm doing. I think you don't know what you're doing." That man's vision seemed to have swept past the palace lord's hand, which was cut by the dagger. Looking at that hand, which was filled with fresh blood, and the blood was dripping down, that man's smile turned even colder. "Either I do it, or you bring her back to the palace lord." The palace lord seemed as though he wanted to rebuke something, but he lowered his eyes and took a look at his own hand, which was dripping blood. He hung his head down. His tensed-up body slowly turned around, facing Yiqing Luo. He looked at Yiqing Luo's face as his voice turned chilly. "Go." Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as she took a step back. Her brows were filled with alertness towards him. Although, as compared to that man who suddenly appeared earlier, this palace lord of the palace lord seemed to be helping her. But who knew if this was a trick played by the palace lord? One white face and one black face. Then he deceived her just like that, to willingly fall into the pit. Seeing the distrust in Yiqing Luo's eyes, the palace lord's mood sunk once again. He suddenly raised his hand and locked her wrist. Pulling her, he took big steps towards that man's direction. Yiqing Luo's expression changed. Let go. Before DMO, Xian returned. She couldn't possibly leave with him. The strength of his fingers increased. If you leave with me now, you'll suffer less. I won't leave with you. Yiqing Luo's other hand climbed onto his fingers as she forcefully pried his hand away. Palace lord of the palace lord of the palace, this kind of action of yours, not to mention your companions, will misunderstand you. Even I feel that you're secretly in love with me. The palace lord's hand was violently flung away. He stared at Yiqing Luo. He didn't say a word for a long time. That low pressure made Yiqing Luo's heart tremble. Did she say anything wrong? It was obviously him, playing the role of the good cop for no reason. It was hard not to be misunderstood. All right. A gust of cold wind brushed past his face. She saw that person stand between her and the palace master of the secluded darkness palace. He was getting closer and closer. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the chilly, murderous intent from that person. She frowned in alarm, her expression tense. That man didn't hesitate as he abruptly raised his hand, and his profound energy exploded as his palm wind surged and struck towards Yiqing Luo. It was extremely fast. Even the palace master of the Netherworld Palace didn't have time to react. Why are you dilly-dallying? I can't stand it anymore. How much time do you want to waste? Just cripple him and bring him back to complete the mission. The credit is yours. That person shouted impatiently. His hand movements became increasingly swift and fierce. The surging energy in the air caused people to be shocked. That person's attack was simply too unexpected. Yiqing Luo, who had sensed the dangerous aura, almost reflexively displayed her footwork. Under the palm wind, a red dress flashed past like the setting sun. Rumble. The deafening cracking sound caused the entire graveyard to collapse. You actually dodged it. That person was slightly shocked and then laughed. Indeed, interesting. Ghost King, the palace master of the Netherworld Palace, shouted sternly. You've interfered with this palace's mission time and time again. This palace has the right to punish you for the crime of insubordination. The black-robed man who was addressed as Ghost King paused slightly. In his laughter, there was a faint hint of a smile. April Fool's Small Theater. Overlord upholds the rule of the husband. Yiqing Luo, smiling and waving at Xian. Come over, DMO, Xian. Hugging, we've only left for a short while. And Lil Lu already misses me? Yiqing Luo, pushing him, stop fooling around. I have a very serious matter to tell you. DMO, Xian. Evil smile, all right, Lil Luo, you say it. Yiqing Luo, staring at him, solemnly listened carefully. What I want to say is I don't like you. DMO Xian, staring at her. Yiqing Luo, clutching his lapel. Hey, do you understand what I'm saying? What kind of attitude is this? DMO Xian, raising his eyebrows. I understand. Yiqing Luo, don't you have anything to say? DMO Xian, smiling. What do you mean? Yiqing Luo, exasperated. I said, I don't like you anymore. I don't want to be with you anymore. Shouldn't you be begging me, coaxing me, and pampering me so that I'll change my mind? DMO Xian, continuing to smile. Oh, no need. Yiqing Luo, unhappy again. Turning to leave, DMO Xian, hooking her waist. Lil Luo, Yiqing Luo, turning her head away from him. Don't touch me. I'm very angry now, the kind that can't even be coaxed by kissing, hugging, and raising me up high. DMO Xian, hugging her tightly. Sign, I know what day it is over there. Yiqing Luo, days, how did you know? DMO Xian, previously when I went to the 21st century, I wanted to understand you and specially inquired about the customs over there. Yiqing Luo, dazed. You You're an ancient person. Is it really good not to follow my routine? DMO Xian. April Fool's Day. Everything said is ironic, so? Lil Luo said she doesn't like me. Actually, she liked me very much, right? Yi Qing Luo, turning her head to leave. I didn't say anything again. Goodbye. DMO Xian. Locking her waist tightly, lifting her chin, Lil Luo, although I know you're saying ironic, but hearing Lil Luo's mouth saying such hurtful words, my heart still feels very uncomfortable. Yi Qing Luo, looking at the man's approaching face, resisting to no avail. You, what do you want to do? Chapter 3360. But Ghost King didn't respond to the Palace Lord. His figure flashed as he passed by the Palace Lord and pounced towards Yi Qing Luo again. His entire body was filled with a murderous aura. The chilly aura enveloped Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's pupils dilated. Her long eyelashes trembled uncontrollably. This chilly aura, it made her limbs numb and unable to move at all. Even if she wanted to avoid it, she was suppressed by his aura. This man, what level was the profound grade? He was so powerful. She was about to step into the legendary stage, a sage profound grade, but she couldn't even withstand his aura. Ghost King, the palace master of Netherworld Palace, roared, his tone filled with rage. Since Palace Lord wants to punish, then punish. But in order for the mission to proceed smoothly, I will take over and bring this prey back. Ghost King's tone was very calm, totally disregarding his anger. And with a wave of his sleeves, he took out a rope and tied up the palace master of the secluded palace. The palace lord was so angry that he cursed. But the more he struggled, the rope that was tied on his body was wrapped even tighter. Just as Ghost King's attention was placed on the palace lord, Yi Qing Luo was following Old Man Song's instructions, slowly circulating the profound qi in her profound jade heart, slowly releasing it to resist the invisible pressure. Like a warm current of profound qi, it spread out in her body bit by bit and lingered around her limbs and bones. That suffocating feeling in her chest finally felt much more comfortable. Ghost King's reaction was very sharp. Yi Qing Luo's aura fluctuated slightly. He had already speedily fixed his vision on Yi Qing Luo. Even the cloak couldn't hide the chill in his eyes. You can still resist my pressure? Ghost King's tone was filled with interest. I really can't underestimate you. While they were talking, Yi Qing Luo only felt a chilly wind blowing by her cheek. A stinging pain eroded from her shoulder. Ghost King unknowingly stood in front of her again. One hand pinched her shoulder. 5 fingers exerted force, and Yi Qing Luo could clearly hear a crack sound coming from her body. Yi Qing Luo gave a muffled groan. The intense pain caused cold sweat to seep out of her forehead. Her dislocated shoulder caused her to be unable to move her right hand. This restricted her from using the glowing flame fan with her right hand. Yi Qing Luo's breathing congealed as she endured the intense pain on her shoulder. She lifted her left hand and flipped her palm to hit the arm that was lying across her shoulder. That palm strike was ruthless. The Ghost King's hand instinctively retreated. Yi Qing Luo immediately retreated, avoiding the Ghost King's attack range. Shortly after, he quickly grabbed the glowing flame fan with his left hand. Profound qi gathered, and with a flick of his fingers, the glowing flame fan was like a raging flame, blossoming with raging flames. Bang! There was an explosion in the air. The powerful and vast profound energy surged violently. The Ghost King was also pushed back 2 steps by that palm strike. He raised his hand and looked at the arm that had been hit. His entire body was filled with coldness. The black yin-chi in the surroundings was constantly twisting and swirling. His figure looked hazy and blurry. This person called Ghost King was not easy to deal with. No, to put it more accurately, she couldn't deal with him at all. If it wasn't for Old Man Song's timely guidance on how to retract his profound energy and escape from that person's demonic claws, there was a possibility that her entire right hand would have been broken by the Ghost King. The disparity between their abilities was just too huge, if this carried on. Chapter 3361. No way. Xian had yet to walk out of that so-called dark formation. She absolutely could not let the Nether Palace have their way. At least, she had to drag it out until Xian returned. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers tightened. Half-squinted long and narrow eyes, suffused with a biting cold glint. The profound energy mobilized in the profound jade heart quickly filled her entire body. Then, she abruptly raised her right hand that was powerless to move. 5 fingers opened. Profound chi shot out. The strong air wave was like a huge wave washing the sand, surging violently. It set off layers of huge waves in the air. Her right hand's finger, a ball of cold and beautiful red light, enveloped it. The azure dew ring was burning hot on her fingertip. Yiqing Luo's aura fluctuated and continuously rose. A pair of incomparably beautiful eyes, blood red bit by bit, covered her entire pupils. Demonic, shocking people. This is... Ghost King stared at Yiqing Luo's right hand. His tone had some meaning. You actually have the azure dew divine weapon. He seemed to have a strong interest. His eyes stared deadly at Yiqing Luo. You can also use the azure dew divine weapon. No wonder so many people want to get their hands on you. When Yiqing Luo released the azure dew divine weapon's power, she could also clearly observe the surrounding situation. After hearing Ghost King's words, Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. This Ghost King was from the Nether Palace. Didn't he know that she had the azure dew divine weapon? Wouldn't he know her profound jade heart could unlock the azure dew divine weapon seal? Originally, the dark forces for her profound jade heart to unlock the azure dew ring seal. It could be said that they had racked their brains. The Nether Palace couldn't possibly not know this. Or, this Ghost King was actually not from the Nether Palace? Lass, although we can confirm that there's nothing wrong with the Tranquility Pearl with your current body quality, it is enough to extend the fusion time between the divine weapon and the profound jade heart, but you have to be clear, the other party's strength is at a height that you can't estimate. Old Man Song worriedly warned, don't force yourself too much, otherwise, with your current profound rank, if you suffer the backlash of the Divine Phoenix profound heart jade, not only will you be in trouble, this East-Tide continent, even the entire Nirvana realm, will become your burial goods. After all, Yiqing Luo had already advanced the Sky Profound 9th grade and was about to step into the legendary stage. How long the Azure Water Divine artifact's power could be maintained, or how many times it could be used in succession, all of these numbers had to be calculated anew. If it exceeded a certain limit, even with the heart-calming bead suppressing the restlessness of the profound heart jade, Xiao Chun was not able to control it. He was afraid that something might happen to them. Yiqing Luo's fingers clenched tightly. Her blood-colored bewitching eyes were filled with killing intent. I understand. He paused. Her figure suddenly darted and appeared beside the Ghost King. He moved his left hand. The gourd flame fan unfurled and slashed out sharp wind blades. This sudden movement. When the Ghost King realized this, he tried to dodge. Yiqing Luo's figure had already entangled him like a shadow. Bang! That gourd flame fan, which was like a blossoming flame, directly entered the Ghost King's body through his back. The Ghost King gave a muffled groan and turned his hand to grab Yiqing Luo's injured right hand. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes turned cold and her footsteps swayed. Not only did she avoid the Ghost King's counterattack, she also raised her leg and gathered profound energy towards the Ghost King's abdomen and gave a fierce kick. Dong! The Ghost King's body flew out in a straight line. The ground shook and a huge pit exploded as gravel flew everywhere. This, amidst the billowing smoke and dust, a low and hoarse sound of sucking in cold air was heard. Chapter 3362. No wonder it's the power of a divine relic. That hoarse voice could be vaguely heard again. Smoke and dust rolled. Ghost King's figure was faintly discernible. it gradually became clear. His robe was slightly messy, and there were a few pieces of cloth hanging on it. It seemed that Yi Qing Luo's counterattack. It didn't cause no harm to Ghost King at all. Yes, before you die, to be able to taste the power of a divine relic, it's not a waste for you to come to the lower realm. You should thank me. Yi Qing Luo's pale lips curved slightly. An evil smile bloomed on the corners of her lips. Between his brows, there was a captivating, oppressive cold smile on his face. Her words fell. Yi Qing Luo's fingers clenched again. The red light on the azure dew ring bloomed, even more dazzling. Majestic, profound light, piercingly sharp. The momentum was majestic like the surging waves. No matter how one looked at it, it was soul-stirring. But if someone looked closely, it could be seen. That young lady who released this powerful force. Cold sweat kept seeping out from her forehead, drop by drop, dripping down, soaking her robe. That beautiful face that could topple cities was extremely pale. Her brows were knitted tightly. Her eyes were sharp, as if it was bearing great pain. But the young lady's movements were smooth, without any pause. The momentum released. It was completely different from what it showed on the surface. Bam! Another loud crash resounded. Ghost King's attack collided with Yi Qing Luo's attack. Both of them retreated a few steps back. A violent hurricane howled, rolling up the Ghost King's cloak. Yi Qing Luo didn't give Ghost King a chance to catch his breath. Her left hand clenched again, feeling the burning power of the azure dew ring. She leapt up, the glower flame fan flipped, the profound light burst out. "Heh, young lady, you believe too much in the power of a divine relic." Ghost King sneered. His eyes were filled with malice. Half squinting his malicious eyes, looking at Yi Qing Luo's profound chi-boundless attack. He sneered. The moment Yi Qing Luo approached, he raised his hand and grabbed Yi Qing Luo's wrist. Yi Qing Luo felt a sharp pain. She wanted to pull her hand away. But how could the Ghost King give her this chance? Her slender little hand was tightly grasped in Ghost King's palm. The Ghost King laughed coldly. "Little girl, I'm afraid you've forgotten that with your current strength, the divine weapon is nothing but a useless object in your hands." His vision turned towards Yi Qing Luo's finger, at that azure aqua ring, which was suffused with a red glow. The eyes beneath the cloak revealed a look of greed. A divine artifact for you to use is a waste of a heavenly treasure. Why don't I take over the divine artifact and display its true might? Saying that, Ghost King's finger flashed and turned into a hand knife, chopping towards Yi Qing Luo's wrist. Shockingly, he wanted to chop off Yi Qing Luo's hand directly. F*CK. F*CK. If you want the divine artifact, then say openly. What was the point of stepping on the high and flattering the low? Damn it, they wanted to snatch her divine artifact. It also depended on whether she agreed or not. Yi Qing Luo's blood-colored eyes flashed a strange red glow. When the Ghost King's hand blade fell, she endured the sharp pain and turned her wrist over. The glower flame fan in her hand turned into a revolving sharp blade, spinning rapidly towards Ghost King's face. Ghost King was caught off guard. He didn't expect Yi Qing Luo to be able to counterattack under such circumstances. When the sharp blade separated the cloak on his face, he then reacted and quickly let go of Yi Qing Luo, dodging backwards. Only, no matter how fast his reaction was, that revolving sharp blade, which was like a ball of raging fire, was even faster. Chapter 3363. Yi Qing Luo took the opportunity and quickly retreated. She staggered a few steps before stabilizing her body. Then, he panted heavily. Indeed, just like what the Ghost King said, with her current strength, fusing the power of the divine weapon was still too taxing. It was only a dozen rounds of fighting. She already had a feeling that she was unable to do as she wished. Very taxing. Extremely taxing. She forcefully closed her eyes and calmed herself down. Absolutely. She had to hold on. She could not let the Ghost King succeed. At least, she had to wait for Ah Xian to return. Ah Xian, he must be trying his best to return to her side. and fighting against the dark formation. So, she had to hold on. She had to wait for Xian. She raised her eyes. Her gaze was firm as she looked at the Ghost King. But she saw. The cloak on the Ghost King's face was cut by the glower flame fan. His face was revealed. His facial features were regular. Yiqing Luo, who was used to seeing handsome men, felt that he was handsome. His age was around 40 to 50 years old. The side of his face was slashed by the glowing flame fan, and blood was flowing out of it. Not sure if it was an illusion. When she saw the Ghost King's face, Yiqing Luo actually had a kind of familiar feeling. But after a careful look, she felt that this was a stranger she had never seen before. Just now, that fleeting sense of familiarity, what was going on? Young lady, good, very good. You actually dare to hurt me. The Ghost King's eyes were filled with intense anger. He slowly wiped the blood on his face. His eyes were filled with a treacherous cold glint. Not good. Lass, he is angry. Old Man Song was shocked. If he is serious, you will be in trouble, he suddenly said firmly. I will come out to help you. No need. Yiqing Luo immediately stopped him. The other party is from the upper realm. If you appear, he will definitely know. The Azure Dew bracelet is on me. No matter what, the secret of the Azure Dew bracelet must be concealed. Otherwise, once those ambitious people knew the whereabouts of the Azure Dew bracelet, they would definitely come to snatch it. After facing the Ghost King, Yiqing Luo was very clear. If those people from the upper realm forcefully snatched the Azure Dew bracelet, she wouldn't be able to block it. But Old Man Song was anxious and worried at the same time. Girl, the other party obviously came prepared. The Venerable Sovereign is trapped in the dark formation. Even a Venerable Sovereign would need some time to get out of that formation. Plus, we don't know what tricks the dark secluded palace have played in the formation. On top of that, there's obviously a formation set up around this tomb that targets your mental power. It's impossible for you to get those saint beasts to come out and help. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she was stunned. How could that be? Seal my spiritual power? Then aren't we still in contact? That's because I've advanced during this period of time, and the connection between us has also increased. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be able to contact me now. He had to admit it. While Yiqing Luo was using Hao Nanren as bait, Darkness Palace's trap within a trap had to be even more careful. Targeted at Mo Xian. Targeted at Yiqing Luo. Arrangements have been made. After all, the might of Yiqing Luo's few sacred beasts was simply too huge. If Yiqing Luo were to pull those sacred beasts out for a walk, even if the Palace Lord of Darkness and Ghost King join hands, they would probably find it strenuous. So this illusionary tomb was targeted at Yiqing Luo's mental power. When Yiqing Luo stepped into the palace she had seen previously. Chapter 3364. Yiqing Luo tried to sense the pet space. Sure enough, she couldn't contact her companions in the space. She pursed her lips tightly. The light in her blood-red eyes kept darting around. After a while, she fixed her gaze on Ghost King. I can do it. Old Man Song. Even without Chi and the rest, it doesn't matter. After all, I'm the only one who can have the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, and also the one chosen by the Azure Water Artifact. After she finished speaking, her slender fingers clenched tightly again. That slightly unstable aura once again began to rise. On her fingertip, the Azure Water Ring flashed with red light. Because of this, Yiqing Luo didn't notice. On the other side of the Azure Water Ring, that red jade Profound Phoenix Ring was also faintly emitting a faint light. All of her energy, all concentrated on the artifact. She circulated the power of the Profound Heart Jade and began to explore bit by bit towards her wrist. Lass, Old Man Song realized Yiqing Luo's intention and his expression changed greatly. You still want to release the power of the Azure Water Artifact? No, absolutely not. Old Man Song was about to rush out from the Azure Dew bracelet. Your body can't withstand the power of two artifacts. Even if you have the Tranquility Pearl, the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade will be unstable. Old Man Song saw that Yi Qing Luo was still mobilizing her profound energy, and his aura exploded. He was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Lass, if the Overlord is here, she will absolutely not let you do this. If the Overlord painstakingly comes out from the dark formation, and something happens to you because of the backlash from the Divine Phoenix profound heart jade, what will the Overlord do? Don't worry. Yi Qing Luo slowly closed her eyes, her voice slightly trembling. Since the artifact chose me, then it must be something that belongs to me. If I can't conquer it, even if I contract the artifact like what Ghost King said, it's just a useless thing. Success was always accompanied by risks. If she didn't try, how would she know that she couldn't control the artifact's power? This was an artifact that belonged to her. It should be conquered by her. The dark force had already entered the thin red line on his wrist. Azure Water Chain. This was the second Azure Water Divine artifact she had obtained from the 21st century plane. He fused the power of the Azure Water Ring and the Azure Water Chain together. It should be enough to deal with the Ghost King. Even if he couldn't kill the Ghost King, at the very least, he could buy some time. Old Man Song was unable to refute Yi Qing Luo's words. He indeed admired this point of Yi Qing Luo the most. Confident, but not conceited. He also had the courage to challenge, instead of going with the flow. After a while, he sighed. Forget it. I will accompany you. If the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade really suffers a backlash, I will definitely stop it, even if I have to use all my soul power. Yi Qing Luo smiled slightly. Then, he focused all his attention on the two divine artifacts. She guided the power of the two divine artifacts to fuse. Sure enough, it was as she had expected. When the power of the two divine artifacts fused together, it was as if it had its own consciousness. They quickly intertwined with each other. The fusion of the two energies was very smooth. But the main body that received these two powers, only Yi Qing Luo wasn't feeling too good right now. This body of hers, releasing the power of the Azure Water Ring, was already strenuous enough. Adding on the power of the Azure Water Chain, once it fused, she felt the internal organs in her body were burning in pain, as if they were being burned by a raging flame. Chapter 3365. The fusion of the two god relics' energy was still moving about excitedly. The blood-colored glow encircled Yi Qing Luo's surroundings. It enveloped Yi Qing Luo within it, like a blood-colored protective cover. This scene made the infuriated Ghost King squint his sinister eyes. That sinister and ruthless face was a bit pale. Young lady, you really don't want your life anymore. The terrifying, profound glow on Yi Qing Luo's body was still increasing. Ghost King's face was gloomy as his palm wind moved and struck towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Bam! Ghost King had no way to get close to Yi Qing Luo. His body was sent flying by a strong impact. It was the blood-colored protective cover which encircled Yi Qing Luo's surroundings. Ghost King fell onto the ground and was forced to slide a few meters back by the impact. His robe was cut by the sharp bones and stones on the ground, and a large piece of flesh was cut off. His brows twitched in pain as he swiftly sat up straight and looked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. How is this possible? How could her profound grade continue to increase? Isn't she afraid that her body can't take such a load? Ghost King frowned in disbelief. The place where he fell was not far from where the Palace Lord of Secluded Palace was tied up. Coincidentally, the Palace Lord of Secluded Palace could hear Ghost King's words clearly. Palace Lord of Secluded Palace was extremely shocked. He looked at Yi Qing Luo's right hand, which was broken by Ghost King as it kept on encircling Yi Qing Luo and seeping into her body. Following that, he looked at Yi Qing Luo's profound energy as it continued to rise at an extremely terrifying speed. Even in Secluded Palace, using the method which he instructed, no one was able to do it like what Yi Qing Luo was doing now, to keep on rising terrifying power. If this went on, it would really be like what Ghost King said. Yi Qing Luo's body was unable to take the load of this energy. Once she suffered the backlash from the profound jade heart, Yiqing Luo would die. Palace Lord of Secluded Palace struggled anxiously. Palace Lord of Secluded Palace's movement naturally attracted Ghost King's attention. The Ghost King looked at the Palace Master of the Nether Palace with an ugly expression. How many divine weapons does she have? Didn't you set up a trap for this little girl and His Majesty before coming here? How could there be a change? The Palace Lord of Ethereal Palace stared intently at Yiqing Luo's direction. Hearing the Ghost King's words, the eyes under the black cloak flickered slightly. Unconsciously, his gaze became gentler. Indeed, as long as Yiqing Luo was around, no matter how meticulous the plan was, there would be changes, because the girl herself was a variable. Yiqing Luo didn't know that Ghost King and the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness were astonished by the current situation. There was only one feeling in her heart, damn it. She was dying of pain. After the power of the two divine artifacts fused together, the profound qi seemed to have been injected with stimulants as it surged continuously in his body. It passed through every tendon and vein. It passed through every inch of flesh. And this dash, it was as if a sharp blade had ruthlessly sliced him. It was like a ball of raging fire burning furiously. If it wasn't for the fact that her willpower was strong enough, she probably would have fainted from the pain. Chapter 3366. Lass, this is the profound heart jade's warning to you. Old man Song sighed and knew that no matter how he dissuaded her, he would not be able to dispel Yiqing Luo's thoughts. The more clearly, the more worried old man Song was. Looking at Yiqing Luo's head full of cold sweat from the pain and her forcefully enduring the pain, old man Song also felt that he was empathizing with her. If one looked closely, one would probably be able to see that Yiqing Luo's delicate body was currently trembling slightly. Nothing. She closed her eyes and deeply felt the profound energy in her body, although her body was in pain, like it was about to swell, like it was about to tear her soul apart. But Yiqing Luo's heart was not the least bit flustered. She was not trying to be brave, but he felt a strange power. That was the power mixed in with the pain. She did not know how to describe this feeling. There was an inexplicable kind of obsession. As long as she could combine the power of the divine artifact and deeply find that mixed power, it would definitely be of great help to her. This was like touching a barrier when her profound grade was promoted. As long as she broke through that barrier, then she would be able to promote. Her strength could be promoted. This mysterious and unfathomable power, it was a barrier. Break this barrier. She could completely conquer the divine artifact. Not only that, she couldn't use the divine artifact, but although she had the obsession, in fact, it was not that easy to achieve. At least, the pain in her body had already made her somewhat unable to withstand it. She knitted her thin brows tightly. Her breathing was slightly hurried. She wanted to calm her mind. He tried his best to see that strange power clearly, to explore that barrier. But the more she wanted to explore it, that pain in her body that was like a sharp blade cutting through her bones and a raging flame deepened a bit. Mother asterisk Kerr. What the hell was this power? Yiqing Luo tried her best to maintain her consciousness. Oh, suddenly, the two powers of the divine artifact fiercely shook in her body. Yiqing Luo only felt that something was expanding in her body. She even felt that. His body was like a balloon that was getting bigger and bigger. It grew bigger and bigger. Her heart skipped a beat, and her breathing became even tighter. The feeling of pain. She didn't even hear old man Song's worry. His forehead was covered with dense cold sweat. Her delicate body trembled even more violently. Just when she felt that her body was about to explode, suddenly he felt a gentle feeling in his head. It was as if a warm and soft palm was gently caressing her head. Then her eyelashes, which were tightly shut, suddenly trembled. Her delicate body also trembled. Soon after, the heart-wrenching pain and burning sensation in his body were extinguished by this warm and refreshing feeling. What followed closely behind? It was a comfortable, soft, and cool feeling that flowed through her limbs and bones. The power of the fusion of divine weapons, surprisingly. He was also well-behaved. Lass! Lass! Beside his ear was Old Man Song's anxious and panicked shouts. Yiqing Luo was startled by this sound as she opened her eyes. In her mind, Old Man Song's joyful voice rang again. Lass, you scare me to death. Luckily you're fine. Yiqing Luo was still in a daze. She moved her body. She discovered that her body seemed to have been reborn, light like a feather. Even the right shoulder that was broken by Ghost King had recovered its original liveliness. Star. Chapter 3367. Was this the change caused by the fusion of the divine weapon? In other words, she succeeded? The change in Yiqing Luo's body. As a weapon spirit, Old Man Song could naturally feel it. After confirming that Yiqing Luo's body wasn't affected by the power of the divine weapon fusion, and instead successfully conquered the power of the divine weapon, he was so ecstatic that he almost jumped out of the Azure Dew bracelet. Girl, you're amazing. How'd you do it? You actually withstood the power of the divine weapon fusion. It's simply incredible. Old Man Song had hypothesized many possibilities. He also thought that Yiqing Luo could conquer the power of the divine weapon fusion. But he never thought, not only did she conquer the power of the divine weapon fusion, because of this power, her body had been reborn. It could be said that Yiqing Luo now was the new her. Her body was even more perfect than before after she used the cleansing marrow pill. Almost no impurities could be found in her body. It could even be said, Yiqing Luo was about to leave the mortal body. Hearing Old Man Song's shock, Yiqing Luo was slightly startled. She was surprised. Old Man Song, just now, when my breath was in a mess and I was almost devoured by the power of the two divine weapons, wasn't it you? Wasn't it you who placed your palm on my head and helped me suppress the power of the divine weapons? Just now at the critical moment. That soft palm on her head, wasn't it Old Man Song's? What? What palm? What suppression? Old Man Song was at a loss. Yiqing Luo was startled again. Her long eyelashes slightly trembled and immediately lowered her eyes. Not Old Man Song. So where did the energy that helped her just now come from? Who is it? Why? Would choose to help her suppress the power of the divine weapon? Let her successfully conquer the divine weapon? Girl, don't worry about the palm or suppression. Look over there. Old Man Song suddenly reminded. Yiqing Luo recovered from her deep thoughts and looked towards the direction where the profound energy was the most turbulent. A deafening roar sounded, shaking the heavens and earth, only to see the disheveled Ghost King, both feet firmly planted into the ground, both hands clenched into fists, his entire body tensed up, every line smooth. He roared again and again. The profound energy in his body was also rising at an extremely terrifying speed. His clothes and black hair fluttered in the strong wind as he bared his fangs and brandished his claws. He must have realized what you were thinking and wanted to take the opportunity to cripple you. Old Man Song solemnly said, although you've fused with the power of two divine weapons, this power isn't yours after all. I'm unable to estimate how long it will last. So you must be careful. The opponent's profound rank is not low, and his overall strength is definitely not weak. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips and responded seriously. She looked at the Ghost King warily. Even after fusing with the power of two divine artifacts, Old Man Song still warned her to be careful of the Ghost King from this. It could be seen how terrifying the Ghost King's strength was. Facing such an unknown and powerful enemy, she had to be careful. Just at this moment, that man who was howling suddenly shot his vision towards Yiqing Luo. In his eyes, a valiant, profound aura shot out two gusts of cold wind directly towards Yiqing Luo's face. Xiao! A strong wind cut through the sky. Chapter 3368. But the Yiqing Luo, who had been reborn, had an extremely acute sense of danger. In the instance when Ghost King's vision looked over, Yiqing Luo reflexively leaped up and turned into a red ray, disappearing into the air. Young lady, I didn't expect you to have 2 divine armaments on you. It's not a waste for me to specially rush over today. Ha ha ha. Ghost King's words had just ended. He had accurately located Yiqing Luo's current position. Yiqing Luo had not even stabilized herself when Ghost King's next attack had already arrived. Yiqing Luo's fingertips moved, and the glower flame fan opened up, suddenly releasing a red barrier. Violent and ferocious profound energy crashed onto the barrier. Rumble, 2 bursts of energy suddenly exploded. Violent, profound energy blended with the heaven and earth. The surrounding air seemed to have been frozen by an invisible force. The explosive aura made Yiqing Luo's breathing difficult. This Ghost King was indeed not to be underestimated. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased tightly as she speedily evaded Ghost King's attack. Her figure was as swift as lightning. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water. Violent and terrifying profound energy kept spreading outwards. After exchanging over 10 moves with Ghost King, the both of them took a step back. But Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change. But the fishy sweetness in her throat indicated that she wasn't as calm as she looked. This round of exchange. In fact, she was the one at a disadvantage. What was the background of this Ghost King? His ability had actually reached such a level? Even the power of 2 divine armaments combined couldn't even contend against him. If she didn't take the risk earlier, wouldn't she be carried by Ghost King directly to secluded palace now? Yiqing Luo's fingers clenched tightly, feeling the surrounding heaven and earth's profound energy twining around her. After the transformation of her body, after her ability had increased, her body's transformation was indeed huge. Now, she could even feel the presence of the palace lord of secluded palace who was tied to one side. One must know that before this, even if the palace lord of secluded palace stood in front of her, she wouldn't be able to sense his presence. But now she could sense it. This meant that the palace lord's ability and now her ability after fusing with the divine armaments were on par, and now she was probably no match for the Ghost King. That was to say, Ghost King was more powerful than the Palace Master of Gloomy Palace. Who exactly was this Ghost King? He didn't look like he was from the Dark Nether Palace. However, he had been helping the Palace of Netherworld. Could it be? Was he also an outsider like Zhu Wuxin, who worked with the Palace of Darkness? The power of a divine artifact is indeed extraordinary. Even a mortal like you can grow to this extent. The Ghost King laughed coldly. His face was filled with a satisfied grin. He slowly raised his hands and laughed a little crazily. Divine artifact? I must get it. Ha! This is my divine artifact. Well, he raised his hand. It brought along a violent and ferocious profound energy. Endless waves of chi began to surge. The dark and gloomy sky also seemed to have turned into a ball of mist and started to gather towards the center of his palm bit by bit. That terrifying aura. It was as if it could destroy heaven and earth. Ghost King, you can't do that. Seeing this, the Palace Master of Gloomy Palace struggled anxiously. The ropes that bound him cut his skin, and blood seeped out. Chapter 3369. Ghost King's sinister laughter didn't stop because of the Palace Lord's words. The horrifying aura was still circling around. His eyes were filled with sinister viciousness. She has the protection of the God Relic. She won't die. Anyway, what you want is the profound jade heart in her body. Saying that, he licked his lips greedily as his voice became increasingly sinister. If I want to get the God Relic, the only way is to destroy her willpower and mental power. Of course, the most convenient way was to kill Yiqing Luo. But Secluded Palace didn't allow it. Then, He could only destroy Yi Qing Luo's willpower and mental power. Then he could cut off the connection between the God Relic and Yi Qing Luo. Ghost King narrowed his sinister eyes as his vast, profound energy slowly moved towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. After testing the power of the God Relic, I am very satisfied with it. Enough talking to yourself. Looking at the Ghost King's powerful and boundless profound chi, which was charging towards him like a hot knife through butter, the Ghost King's eyes widened. Yi Qing Luo's eyes suddenly turned cold. The glower flame fan moved. A fire dragon was formed, brandishing its claws as it circled in midair. Her brows were cold. Her eyes were flowing with a burning battle intent. The fire dragon roared towards the sky. Following Yi Qing Luo's control, it went against the vast, profound energy released by Ghost King. Not good. Old Man Song's voice rang. The Azure Dew bracelet followed closely. Lass, he's serious now. You can't go head on. Old Man Song attempted to break the Azure Dew bracelet and come out to help Yi Qing Luo, just as the fire dragon was roaring upwards. Yi Qing Luo felt something was wrong, because Ghost King's arrogance. It was totally different from when they exchanged blows previously. If at that time, she could still exchange over 10 moves with Ghost King. But now, she was basically going to be killed in a second. Thinking of Ghost King's words earlier, Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled. Could it be? Ghost King was actually testing the God Relic's evil power on her, to see how much impact it could have on her. Now the test was over. He was going to use his full strength? Yi Qing Luo had no chance to hesitate. Ghost King's vast and boundless profound energy directly severed the fire dragon, which Yi Qing Luo had released. Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned cold as she displayed her footwork. The glowing flame fan in his hand spun rapidly. Red light lingered and silver threads shot out. The silver threads swiftly wound around Yi Qing Luo and formed a silver-edged shield. Red, profound light enveloped it. Yi Qing Luo's finger hooked again. The silver-edged shield smashed into the Ghost King's attack. It was this momentary pause. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as her footsteps moved swiftly. Teleportation secret technique. That's right. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo was displaying her teleportation secret method. This was because her previous footwork relied on her dark force to move. The Ghost King could rely on her aura to determine where she would land. But teleportation's secret techniques were different. He moved silently. Even the Ghost King could not detect the fluctuation of her aura. It was too risky to use the teleportation technique. But other than that, in a short period of time, there was no better way. But she had intentionally used the glowing flame fan's 1,000-year silver threads to create the silver-edged shield, which should have completely attracted the Ghost King's attention. He should not have noticed that she had displayed the teleportation secret method. Indeed, Ghost King's attention earlier was indeed attracted by that silver-edged shield. But Yi Qing Luo seemed to have forgotten. In this cemetery other than the Ghost King. Chapter 3370. The young lady instantly disappeared before his eyes. There wasn't any young lady's presence in the air. This made the palace lord's eyes widen as his eyes were filled with shock and astonishment. What kind of footwork was this? Why couldn't he sense any fluctuation in her presence? The palace lord looked at Ghost King again. He saw Ghost King looking around, as though he was searching for Yi Qing Luo's whereabouts. His heart trembled fiercely for a few times. If Yi Qing Luo's ability was above him and Ghost King, she disappeared. They couldn't sense her presence at all. Perhaps this could be explained. But it was impossible that even Ghost King couldn't find Yi Qing Luo's whereabouts. The eyes of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace flashed. Could it be? Was this another escaping skill, which Yi Qing Luo intentionally hid? There were always various kinds of miracles on that young lady. So, this was another miracle which she created? But this illusionary tomb was specially created to deal with Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo. How could it possibly give Yi Qing Luo a chance to escape, even if this was her miracle? And ultimately, she was unable to walk out of the illusionary tomb. As expected, Ghost King disappeared silently in front of Yi Qing Luo. In this half an instant's time, he wasn't able to find Yi Qing Luo's presence. His eyes turned sharp. Immediately, he raised both his palms. His thick palms floated a layer of black smoke, twisting aura. He opened his palms, as though he was in mid-air, parting a layer of air. Immediately after, the entire graveyard started to shake violently. The graveyard cracked open like a spider web, densely packed and spreading out. The ground was filled with broken limbs as they started to fall. The cracked ground looked like a bottomless abyss. Not long later, Ghost King's vision suddenly fixed on a certain direction. Following that, his figure swayed as he dashed towards that direction. Rumble. The surroundings were still filled with deafening explosions. That direction was the most secluded corner of the tomb. It was at least 200 meters away from the battlefield earlier. In the instance when Ghost King dashed over, in the darkness, a blazing red shadow with a boundless profound light dashed out like a bolt of lightning. The surging airwaves were like raging waves, constantly surging. "It's really here," the Spirit King snorted coldly, facing the incoming profound light. The strength chi in his body shook. The airwaves rolled and dispersed the dark force that was coming at them. Boom! The woman who was charging forward was shaken by this wave of energy, causing her blood and chi to surge. Her delicate body suddenly flew back a few steps. When the red figure steadied himself, he took a closer look. Wasn't it Yi Qing Luo? Ghost King's malicious eyes were burning as he stared at Yi Qing Luo. That piercing gaze made one tremble in fear. In particular, there was a sinister smile on his face. "Little girl, you actually know teleportation?" Ghost King was getting more and more interested in Yi Qing Luo, a person from the lower realm. Not only did he possess 2 of the vast water divine artifact, his mortal body could withstand the power of a divine artifact. He actually knew the teleportation secret technique. Teleportation secret technique. How nostalgic. He didn't expect that 10,000 years had passed. He actually saw the teleportation secret technique once again in the lower realm. "Who taught you the teleportation secret technique?" He stared at her. The smile in his eyes was even more horrifying. Yi Qing Luo's body was still a little stuffy from the earlier airwaves. Chapter 3371. Damn it. She thought that she could make use of this opportunity to leave this illusory territory. After all, she was in the trap zone set by the secluded palace. She had been suppressed too badly. If she left the tomb, she could at least summon her little companions to fight together. But she had not expected that she couldn't find the exit at all. Or perhaps there was no exit at all. After that, she was discovered by Ghost King and was seen through by Ghost King in one look. The footwear she displayed was the blink movement secret art, that familiar reminiscing tone. Apparently, Ghost King had seen the blink movement secret art before. Even if she wanted to deny it, Ghost King probably wouldn't believe her. Blink movement secret art, the ultimate secret art used by the King of Thieves that year. Ghost King slowly walked towards Yi Qing Luo. Every step seemed to condense an invisible pressure. Yi Qing Luo pressed her chest. Earlier, her chest was still in a state of relief from Ghost King's pressure. She saw him walking towards her again. That invisible pressure made her feel even more uncomfortable. That fishy sweetness in her throat seemed as though it was about to gush out. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly as her slender fingers clenched tightly. The hand holding the feather fan also tightened. She was on high alert as she slowly retreated. "Young lady, as long as you tell me, where did you learn this blink movement secret art from? I will let you leave this place. How about that?" Ghost King suddenly stopped when he was 5 steps away from Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo looked at him coldly, listening to his words, which sounded like a discussion. She couldn't help but burst out laughing. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old kid? Why do you have to make me believe your words? Ghost King's expression remained unchanged as he continued. Young lady, you should be very clear that you have no capital to negotiate with me. Other than choosing to believe me, you have no other choice. Yiqing Luo laughed angrily. Why should I choose to believe you? Why should I choose to leave? My man has been placed into the darkness array by the palace lord of the secluded palace, and I will not leave until my man comes out. Ghost King, who was the one who used the blink movement secret art to escape from the tomb, saying in such a serious manner that she didn't want to leave. Did her skin need to be so thick? Yiqing Luo expressed that she was the one who wanted to leave, and this was different from asking him to let her leave. Didn't she want her face? Did she have to leave just because he asked her to? Moreover, she didn't believe him. It was that simple. The Ghost King said, "Little girl, I am giving you a chance. Do you think that if I wanted to investigate, I wouldn't be able to find out your secrets?" Yiqing Luo replied, "Oh, then go ahead and investigate." Ghost King, this girl, why didn't she play by the rules? Soft ones wouldn't work. The Ghost King decided to use force. His face darkened as he strode forward. He stood right in front of Yiqing Luo. The hand, which was condensed with profound energy, went straight to Yiqing Luo's neck. "Speak. Who on earth did you learn your teleportation technique from? Where is that person?" But just as Ghost King's hand touched the skin of Yiqing Luo's neck, he exerted his strength. His palm was actually holding a handful of air. Where was the girl's figure? The Ghost King's face darkened. Damn it. It was the teleportation secret art again. Yiqing Luo, who had executed the teleportation secret art, was already far behind the palace lord of the secluded palace. Squatting down, the glower flame fan in her hand flipped and a dagger was hidden in the fan handle, pressing against the palace lord of the secluded palace's neck. The palace lord of the secluded palace, who was unable to move. Damn it. Chapter 3372. Yiqing Luo expressed that anyway her blink movement secret art had already been seen through. In this place, there wouldn't be a fourth person appearing. Then just use it casually. She could also use it to train her blink movement secret art, which she hadn't used for a long time. She pressed against the palace lord's neck and lifted him up. "I'll borrow you for a while." Palace lord of secluded darkness palace. "Use it. What if he accidentally died?" Yiqing Luo replied, "Oh, don't worry about this. You still have some value, so I won't let you die." Palace lord of secluded darkness palace. So she didn't care about him if he had no value? Yiqing Luo replied, "Oh, I won't. You've sent my Xian into the darkness array. How could I possibly not care about you?" Palace lord of secluded darkness palace. What was with that sinister tone? Forget it. Let's not bother about him. No matter how much palace lord of secluded darkness palace was thinking, he was still taken as a hostage by Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo. Ghost King was infuriated. Yiqing Luo displayed her blink movement secret art and instantly disappeared from his sight. She was simply making fun of him. His face was gloomy, and his malicious eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo had a hostage in her hands, so she wasn't worried that Ghost King would launch another attack. She stared at Ghost King as she slowly squinted her eyes. Ghost King was so persistent about how she learnt the blink movement secret art. Moreover, he said the same thing that Ghost Doctor said when he saw her executing the blink movement secret art. King of Thieves' ultimate secret art, blink movement secret art. Ghost Doctor's tone and expression back then was filled with nostalgia. And Ghost King was the same. Moreover, he seemed to have confirmed that she had learnt the blink movement secret art from the King of Thieves. But from Ghost King's tone, she didn't feel that Ghost King wanted to know the whereabouts of the King of Thieves and then hold a ceremony to acknowledge him. That tone sounded. It was obvious that they looked like enemies. This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was she knew the blink movement secret art, and it wasn't taught by the King of Thieves, but the Azure Dew Bracelet's Purgatory Tower's first floor reward. Of course, this was something that Yiqing Luo would never reveal even if she was beaten to death. Let him go. Ghost King stared at the dagger in Yi Qing Luo's hand. His malicious eyes flickered slightly. Yi Qing Luo smiled. You can't. Yi Qing Luo. The Ghost King's gloomy eyes darkened. Let him go and tell me the whereabouts of the person who taught you the secret method of teleportation. Then I'll open the exit of the dark formation and let the venerable sovereign out. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered. If the condition was to let her go, she might not be moved. But the Ghost King said to let Xian out, even if he deeply believed in Xian's strength. Yi Qing Luo was still worried about him. She thought about how he had set up a dark formation specifically to target her, and how he had fought against the formation in order to rush out to save her. She felt as if there were thin needles piercing her heart one by one. Therefore, the Ghost King's words moved her. Ghost King had been paying attention to Yi Qing Luo's expression. Seeing that her expression had loosened, his lips curled as he increased the temptation. Young lady, this dark formation is a trap specially set up by the secluded palace to target the venerable sovereign. No matter how strong the venerable sovereign is, he would still be injured in the formation. Or perhaps, because of you, he might even lose his life. Chapter 3373. Yi Qing Luo's eyes dimmed. Her long, curly eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings. She raised her eyes and fixed her gaze on Ghost King. The expression on her face was cold and solemn. Her pair of charming eyes were covered with frost, filled with a biting cold intent. Why should I believe you? She finally compromised. The light in the eyes of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace, who was being restrained, dimmed. If possible, he hoped that Yi Qing Luo would not be tempted and use him as a hostage to continue to threaten Ghost King. But Ghost King used DMO Xian as a bait. He was very clear. If Ghost King used her life as a bargaining chip, Yi Qing Luo would absolutely not be moved. But once it involved DMO Xian, Yi Qing Luo chose to compromise. Ha ha ha. Ghost King laughed. That's the right choice. An unimportant person's whereabouts, in exchange for the safety of you and DMO Xian, this pair of lovers. It's worth it. He stared at Yi Qing Luo. Hand him over to me. Tell me, where is the person who taught you the blink movement secret art? Yi Qing Luo was indifferent. Open the entrance of the dark array. I want to see Xian safe and sound before I can be assured. Ghost King's face sunk. Young lady, you don't believe me. Then why should I believe you? Yi Qing Luo sneered. Don't tell me you're afraid of my Xian? Worried that after Xian comes out, you won't be able to control the both of us? Ghost King's malicious eyes flashed a chilly glint. Young lady, goading me is useless. But don't mix me with that bunch of cowards. I, Ghost King, have never been afraid of anyone since I was born. Saying that, he moved his palms. Rolling profound chi was like a raging wave, rolling in his palms. Soon after, the sky above the entire graveyard was shrouded in pitch-black clouds. The yin chi around the cemetery started to distort, just like the time when the dark array appeared. Black chi curled, and in mid-air, it gradually formed a tiny crack. That crack slowly widened. Yi Qing Luo stared at the crack. Earlier, Xian was sucked in by this crack. Just as a fist-sized hole opened up in the crack, a figure suddenly appeared. A loud shout exploded in his ears. No, don't let venerable sovereign come out. Otherwise, everything will be for naught. Yi Qing Luo's entire heart was placed on the crevice. Suddenly, the explosive roar was right next to his ears. It was so loud that her eardrums were buzzing. At this moment, the palace lord of secluded Darkness Palace, whose neck was pressed by Yi Qing Luo, surged a powerful black chi in his eyes as he attacked towards that crevice. The black aura instantly filled up the fist-sized crack. He blinked again. The crack disappeared in midair. The twisting black chi that pervaded the air also gradually dispersed. The Ghost King's movements were interrupted by this sudden power. The backlash caused him to feel a tightness in his chest, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face darkened as he glared at the palace master of Gloomy Palace. "What are you doing? The Overlord must die in the Dark Array. If the Overlord comes out, none of us will be able to bring Yi Qing Luo back to the Palace of Darkness, which means that the mission has failed." The Palace Lord of Gloomy Palace panted lightly as he fearlessly drew a wound on his neck with the dagger. "I don't care what relationship you have with that blink movement secret method, but this is a mission. I can't let you destroy everything." When Ghost King heard that, he couldn't help but laugh. "Are you sure you've been doing this for the mission? Or because of jealousy?" The Palace Lord of Gloomy Palace was stunned. Chapter 3374. The Ghost King sneered. "Palace Master, my cooperation with the Palace of Darkness is only verbal. I will help you only because I owe your master a favor. However, it doesn't mean that you can represent the Palace of Darkness and tell me what to do." The face of the Palace Master of the secluded Darkness Palace was covered by the black cloak, so his expression could not be seen clearly. But from his emotions, I can feel it. At this moment, his heart was in chaos and apprehension. He could not refute the Ghost King. His body was extremely tense. Even the dagger at his neck scratched his skin. It was as if he didn't feel any pain. His eyes were fixed in the direction of the Ghost King. The Ghost King's expression darkened. He raised his hand and wiped away the blood at the corner of his lips. "If you continue to cause trouble, I won't want your life anymore." Yi Qing Luo felt the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace stiffen. Is this the rhythm of internal strife? Actually, in Yi Qing Luo's heart, because the Palace Lord of the Secluded Darkness Palace had destroyed the entrance of the Dark Array, which was opened, she was rather furious. She narrowed her eyes and tightened her grip on his collar. "Did you hear that? If you destroy the entrance to the Dark Array formation, you won't be a qualified hostage anymore." The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. Don't make it sound like he really wanted to be a hostage. Yi Qing Luo expressed that being her hostage was better than being tied to the ground. If she was not careful, she might even fall into the deep abyss which was split open by the Ghost King. That bottomless abyss. Falling down was much worse than being a hostage. So, being a hostage or something, at least I can still live for now, right? Palace Lord of Netherworld Palace. He still didn't want Dmo Xian to walk out of the Dark Array. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. She hoped that Dmo Xian had died in the Dark Array, which was filled with traps, never to appear in front of Yi Qing Luo ever again. Ghost King glanced coldly at the Palace Lord of Gloomy Palace and finally looked at Yi Qing Luo. The expression on his face was extremely cold. "Little girl, you better tell me where that person is after this, or else I'll make you regret what you've done today." After a pause, he continued, "Even if Di Zun is by your side, I still have the ability to make you regret it." His words fell. He spread his palms open once again, and his majestic dark force covered the entire graveyard. The dark clouds rolled again. The black gas rose again. Yi Qing Luo clasped the Palace Lord's hand tightly. A trace of suspicion flashed across her half-closed eyes. What kind of enmity did this Ghost King have with the King of Thieves? He had a feeling. His obsession with the King of Thieves was very deep. They were so deep that they didn't hesitate to go against their cooperation with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. He was so deep that he didn't hesitate to give up the 2 divine artifacts he wanted. But just as a crack reappeared in midair, it slowly widened. The sky above the entire graveyard suddenly flashed with an extremely dazzling golden light. Immediately after, Yi Qing Luo's profound jade heart was like a raging inferno as it fiercely burned for a moment. In the pet space, the breaths of a few companions came. He could also vaguely sense an extremely familiar aura rapidly approaching. Yi Qing Luo's eyes suddenly lit up. This was Kitty. It was Kitty's aura. She had signed a life-and-death blood contract with Kitty. Within a certain distance, they could sense each other's presence. In other words, Kitty was nearby. How did she find her way here? This place was a trap set by the Palace of Darkness. It was the land of illusion. Yiqing Luo was extremely dazed. Chapter 3375. Yiqing Luo didn't know what that flash of golden light was. Ghost King and the palace lord of the secluded palace knew. This golden light represented. This illusory land had been broken by someone. Even the suppression on Yiqing Luo's psyche had been broken. Ghost King's brows creased tightly. How could this be possible? How could this be possible? How could there be anyone in this lowly lower realm who could break the illusory land he had created? And because of this shock, it made the cracks in the dark array, which were gradually opening up close again. The next moment, the truth which Ghost King couldn't believe appeared in front of his eyes, only to see the boundary of the graveyard. Out of nowhere, a slender black silhouette appeared, directly pouncing towards Yiqing Luo's direction. That petite and slender figure was like a kitten. Yiqing Luo was still holding the dagger, which had slipped out from the glower flame fan, and holding onto a hostage. Seeing the figure pouncing over, she didn't even hesitate. She directly threw off the hostage and kept the glower flame fan. Opening her arms, she hugged that figure into her arms. Sister, a sweet little voice with a kitten's coquettish tone. The girl in Yiqing Luo's arms rubbed her head fiercely in her arms. The two black ears on her head popped out. The black tail swayed excitedly. Yiqing Luo hugged the girl in her arms and gently rubbed her little head. Indeed, Kitty was here, but to be able to break this illusory land and destroy the array which was suppressing her psyche, it shouldn't be done by Kitty Lee. Where there was Kitty Lee, there would be Zhou Mo. Where there was Zhou Mo, there would be Ghost Martial Artist. So, Ghost Martial Artist was here? You are. Ghost King looked at this cute girl in astonishment. When his vision was fixed on the ears on Kitty Lee's head and that tail, which was wagging excitedly, his expression changed. Beast human race? How could there be beast humans in Nirvana realm? You're the one who locked Kitty's beloved sister in this damned place and bullied her. Kitty Lee, who heard the voice, suddenly popped out from Yiqing Luo's arms and stared fiercely at Ghost King. His hair stood on end. It even showed its sharp teeth. Ghost King stared at Kitty Lee's teeth, then at Kitty Lee's hands, which had transformed into cat claws. He was extremely shocked. You're a beast man. How did you come to the lower realm? None of your business. Kitty Lee's sensitive nose detected the blood stench on Yiqing Luo, and immediately her pair of quick-witted eyes turned into a whirlpool, deep and serene. Her sweet voice inexplicably revealed a bit of coldness. How dare you hurt Kitty's sister? Kitty will pay with your life. With that, she suddenly turned to the other side of the graveyard and shouted, Zhou Mo, come out, Kitty. The Ghost King's expression became increasingly sinister. He felt, barging into the place he had transformed into. It wasn't just a single beast man. There were others. Moreover, there were many of them. The majestic aura was not something that a lower realm, like the Nirvana realm, could possess. Oh no, the hostage palace mistress of secluded palace heard Kitty Lee's call, and her tone turned flustered. It's them, they're here. Yiqing Luo's helpers are here. Helpers? Ghost King frowned. What helpers? What's going on? Palace mistress of secluded palace didn't answer him. There was no need to answer. Chapter 3376. At the edge of the cemetery, a formless energy was projected over. The golden light flickered. In the haze, a few figures appeared indistinctly. Following that, those few figures got nearer. The one walking at the front was a young man dressed in white. Following closely behind him was the cold-faced Gui Wu. The white-robed young man's speed was extremely fast as he dashed in front of Yiqing Luo. But that pair of evil phoenix eyes was looking at Kitty Lee in Yiqing Luo's arms as he smiled evilly. Little wild cat, who bullied you? I will take revenge for you. Kitty Lee rolled her eyes at Zhou Mo and stared at Ghost King. It's that ugly freak who hurt my sister. Overlord brother-in-law. is gone too. Help me teach that ugly freak a lesson. Mo smiled. If I help you teach that ugly freak a lesson, how does little wild cat intend to reward me? Kitty Lee's eyes widened in an adorable manner before her cheeks flushed red. You! How can you? Kitty ignore you in front of my sister. Obviously, this reward was absolutely not an ordinary reward. Moreover, it seemed that this kind of reward happened frequently. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes as she looked at the blushing Kitty Lee in her arms and couldn't help but laugh. Looked like the days when she was not by Kitty Lee's side. This pair of lovers was living a life of public display of affection every single day. Mo was obviously proficient in teasing Kitty Lee. Seeing Kitty Lee's blushing cheeks, his lips curled as he smiled evilly. Little wildcat, I didn't say what the reward is, have you? Thought wrongly? You. Kitty Lee flew into a rage out of embarrassment as she squeezed out from Yiqing Luo's arms and raised her fist as she threw a punch towards Mo's face. Mo raised his hand as his large palm held Kitty Lee's little hand. Following that, he used a little force. Kitty Lee was held in his arms. Kitty Lee harumphed hard, but didn't struggle. Then, Mo shot an extremely complacent gaze towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo. So young Master Mo had treated her as his love rival? All right, she indeed looked like young Master Mo's love rival. But, both of you, can't you wait till the crisis is over before showing your love? The current style was obviously not right. Kitty Lee also realized that the location wasn't right. When he came back to his senses, he punched Mo's chest again. Hurry up and teach that ugly guy who bullied my sister a lesson. However, Mo didn't let go. His curved phoenix eyes flickered with a profound light. He chuckled. Don't worry, I don't have to do anything. Someone else will deal with him. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose when she heard that. Young Master Mo meant, the Ghost Warrior will deal with the Ghost King? Her line of sight shifted from the two of them to the Ghost Martial Artist. Only then did he realize. The Ghost Martial Artist, who had always been calm and indifferent and could not cause any ripples after eating the ancient martial artists, was now staring at the Ghost King. On that young face, a solemn and dignified expression that didn't match his face appeared. At this moment, the Ghost King's line of sight was fixed on Gui Wu's body. His sinister eyes were dark and treacherous. His expression was solemn, as if he was facing a great enemy. Everyone could see that. These two people, they definitely knew each other. As expected, just as the two of them stared at each other for about half an incense's time, they heard the two of them calling out at the same time. Gui Wu, Ghost King. They called out each other's name, only their tone was totally different. Chapter 3377. Gui Wu frowned. Why are you here? You could be in the lower realm. Why can't I? Ghost King asked back. Gui Wu remained silent for a while, his brows knitted even tighter. You shouldn't be here. Ghost King laughed. Why? You could be in the lower realm. Why can't I be? His voice paused. He seemed to have thought of something. The hostility in his eyes intensified. That person, is he with you? Where is he? Gui Wu stared at his slightly crazed face for a long time. Then he surveyed his surroundings. Finally, it landed on the Palace Lord of Nether Palace. Gui Wu's eyebrows were tightly knitted together, clearly in a displeased mood. You and the Netherworld Palace are involved? I'm asking you, where's that person? Ghost King suddenly roared. The surrounding air also dispersed a burst of intense, profound wave. He leapt up and pounced towards Gui Wu. Master Gui Wu. Yiqing Luo was shocked and was about to rush forward. Ghost King was someone from the upper realm. His strength was unfathomable, so powerful that even she who had fused the power of two divine weapons was not able to contend against him. Although Master Gui Wu's strength was also unfathomable. He was also an old acquaintance of Ghost King. But this sudden attack, Yiqing Luo was worried that Ghost King would be sneak attacked. Just as she moved, her shoulder was held down by someone. A strong force pulled her back. Yiqing Luo turned her head and saw Zhou Mo, who was hugging Kitty Lee, looking at her sloppily. Don't worry, that person is not Ah Wu's opponent. Not Ghost King's opponent. Such a powerful person, actually, was not Ghost King's opponent. That Ghost King. How powerful was he? But, you. Zhou Mo tilted his head and stared at her. Does the Overlord know that you are wasting your body like this? Yiqing Luo knew that he was referring to her. The matter of fusing the power of two divine weapons. She pursed her lips. I'm fine. That's because you're lucky, but it doesn't mean that you can be so lucky every time. Zhou Mo no longer looked at her. If you don't know how to take care of your body, you shouldn't have contracted with Kitty Lee. Yiqing Luo looked down. When Kitty Lee heard this, she got angry and puffed up her cheeks. Hey, what are you talking about? It's a contract with Big Sister. It's decided by Kitty. Zhou Mo hugged Kitty Lee tightly as he glanced sideways at Yiqing Luo. He was smiling on the surface, but his tone was cold. Do you see that? How important are you to the little wildcat? Not only little wildcat, but many people around you are also worried about you. Before you ruin your body, please think about the people who are worried about you and care about you. Kitty Lee's struggling movements paused slightly. Yiqing Luo's drooping head slowly lifted up. She licked her lips, which were a little dry. I know, but I'm not acting on impulse. I want to become stronger, to be able to protect those who worry about me and care about me. You should know that success and risk always coexist, but I believe that I will succeed. Zhou Mo looked at the young girl in front of him. Her clear eyes were filled with determination. A faint light flashed across his deep almond-shaped eyes. He said nothing more, but his gaze returned back to that side, to the two people who were entangled. The exchange of blows between experts was really different. Every movement, that was a fatal killing intent. Yiqing Luo looked at the two people who were entangled. She could deeply see earlier Ghost King and her. It was totally a small fight. Chapter 3378. But she wasn't immersed in disappointment. She forcefully closed her eyes, and her slender fingers clenched tightly. She silently swore in her heart. She must work hard to make herself stronger, not only to walk side by side with Ah Xian, to look at the blooming flowers, but also to make the people around her feel assured. Qing Luo, Qing Luo. There were a few excited shouts in his ears. Yiqing Luo looked over. She saw a few figures walking over from the side of the graveyard. A row of 6 people, neat and tidy, dressed in the same series of black and white attire. On their chests, there were cherry blossom totems, embroidered with the word "the world." Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. The corners of her lips unknowingly curled into an arc. Xiao Yi, Jinzi, Ajan, everyone, you're all here? Yes. It was the world mercenary groups, everyone. Yin Xiao Yi and Tong Ziqing ran up and hugged the young lady. We had just rushed over to East Continent and heard from the East Continent monarch that you might have been kidnapped by the people from Secluded Palace. Do you know that we were almost scared to death? Although we know you have the Overlord by your side, but God Thief said that he sensed a strong energy fluctuation, so we rushed over with Master Gui Wu and the others. God Thief is here too. Yiqing Luo frowned as her vision shot towards the 2 people who were fighting in the sky. That's right, not only God Thief, even the World Group and various powerhouses from various continents have all rushed over. Yin Shaoyi said. Yiqing Luo's brows rose. One secluded palace had united the 4 continents, which had nothing to do with each other for the past 100 years. Amen. This was considered as the only merit that Secluded Palace had done in Nirvana Realm. This time, we not only want to force Secluded Palace out of Nirvana Realm, we also want to report to the Upper Realm. We don't believe that the people from the Upper Realm really don't know anything about such a huge matter happening in Nirvana Realm. Speaking of this, Yin Xiaoyi's tone was obviously filled with anger towards some matters in the Upper Realm. She more or less understood a little from Xiao Jin. Because of this, she felt extremely disgraceful towards the Upper Realm's actions of watching without lifting a finger. since they allowed the people of their plane to bully them in the lower realm. He could only watch helplessly as the lower realm fell into destruction. In that case, what right did they have to call them people from a lower plane of existence from a higher plane of existence? What right did they have to call them trash? What right did the people of the upper realm have to be respected by the people of the lower realm? Where's the overlord? Long Yunjian, who had been silently staring at Yiqing Luo, suddenly opened his mouth. That pair of azure blue eyes contained an indiscernible, complex emotion. Only then did they realize what was going on. That's right. Why isn't the overlord by your side? Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly. He, because of me, was sent by the palace lord of secluded Darkness Palace into the dark array, which was specially set up for him, until now. He still hasn't come out. Everyone's expression changed. Seeing Yiqing Luo's face turning pale, Yin Xiao immediately hugged her arm and consoled her. The overlord is so incredible, he will absolutely be fine. Since it's a formation targeted at the overlord, it will definitely take him some time to break it. Don't worry, the overlord is the most powerful person in the world. Yiqing Luo forcefully pulled the corners of her lips as she revealed a faint smile. Chapter 3379. I'm fine. What answered her was the same indifferent tone. Yiqing Luo expressed that she missed it very much. Tong Ziqing pulled Miao Yi over. It's all thanks to Yi that Class Monitor could be saved. Now that Yi has joined her the world group, we're all a family. Miao Yi smiled. Sister Luo saved me and the Miao Gu clan. This is what I should do. Yiqing Luo rubbed her head as she replied sincerely. No matter what, I really thank you. That's right, Qing Luo. Earlier you mentioned. Palace Lord of Secluded Palace? Mo Hanshang leaned his head over and pointed to the two remnant figures in the sky. That person who is fighting with Master Gue Wu is the Palace Lord of the Secluded Palace? He's actually on par with Master Gue Wu. He is the external helper of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. His strength is indeed very strong. As Yiqing Luo was saying that, she took a look at Zhou Mo's direction. However, Zhou Mo still had no intention of intervening in this battle. Not sure what was going on, Yiqing Luo shook her head. We can't help. Let's take a look at Master Gue Wu's condition first. The battlefield in the horizon was getting more and more intense. They exchanged blows. The entire sky above the graveyard was constantly shaking like waves of air, rippling wave after wave. Their speed and attacks were fast and ruthless. Yiqing Luo, who was still fused with the power of the divine weapon, couldn't see clearly the moves between the two of them. Two figures appeared from time to time, and then there were a few loud explosions in the air. Then, the two figures disappeared again. The next time he appeared, another series of bangs rang out. He disappeared and reappeared, and so on. There were also many rays of light shooting in all directions. Indeed, no one could intervene in the fight between the two of them. However, as the two of them fought for a long time, their attacks became more and more impatient and ferocious. The Xian radiance that shot out in all directions also shot out uncontrollably. Yiqing Luo and the rest stood below, and there were several times when they were almost accidentally injured. He was caught in the middle of a battle between experts. It wasn't just about how they fought. He also had to be careful to avoid the power that they shot out in all directions. Just then, the two people fighting in the sky fiercely collided their palms. Rumble. The two palm winds collided, bringing along a majestic dark force. For a time, the air in the graveyard was filled with a suffocating pressure. Endless profound waves overflowed from the profound energy of the two people fighting. Be careful. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. As for the overflowing profound qi, there was no problem for her to dodge. However, if Tong Ziqing and the others were hit by this qi, they would definitely die. Even if he didn't die, he would be crippled. She moved her feet and rushed in front of everyone. Shortly after, he swiftly unfurled his glowing flame fan, and his profound qi surged, turning into a profound barrier that enveloped the few people behind him. Qing Luo, be careful. While Yi Qing Luo was protecting the few people behind her with the barrier. But he had neglected to protect himself, seeing those overflowing profound qi splashing onto Yi Qing Luo's body. The people inside the barrier all exclaimed, Yi Qing Luo. Beside him, the hoarse and panicked voice of the palace master of Netherworld Palace could be heard. Then, she felt another aura rapidly approaching her. However, in the next instant, Yi Qing Luo only felt her waist tightening. Her entire petite body was locked tightly in a broad embrace. The elegant sandalwood scent filled her nose. It easily soothed all the restlessness and uneasiness in her heart. Chapter 3380. The long arm around her waist tightened slightly. A powerful energy congealed into a barrier, replacing the barrier which she had created. Yi Qing Luo's profound qi dispersed. She raised her head and met with that pair of deep-sea, like peach blossom eyes which seemed to gather the stars. That pupils were filled with her reflection. Yi Qing Luo's arms circled around his neck. Ah, Xian, you're all right. You're all right. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped as he lowered his head and planted a gentle kiss on her forehead. Amen. I'm all right. I'm back, don't worry. Yi Qing Luo buried her head in his arms, deeply inhaling the reassuring scent from him, feeling his warmth. Only then did she ascertain that he was really safe and sound and had returned to her side. And now, she buried her head in Dmo Xian's arms, so she didn't see it. When the man gently caressed her back, she raised her head slightly as she shot a glance outside the barrier, at that man who maintained his outstretched arm and stood stiffly on the original spot, covered in a black robe. Dmo Xian provocatively curled his thin lips as his eyes turned chilly. That gaze seemed to be ridiculing him. Trying to show your presence in front of this lord's woman? You're still too tender. The palace lord naturally didn't miss Dmo Xian's provocative gaze. His tensed-up body became more and more taut as he started to tremble slightly. He was angry and annoyed, but he had nowhere to vent it out. Earlier, he was obviously the one to save Yi Qing Luo first, but he was intercepted by Dmo Xian, who appeared out of thin air. Looking at Dmo Xian's provocative gaze, the palace lord's stiffened hand slowly drooped down. On his wrist, there was an obvious blood stain which was left behind from struggling against the ropes. This scene, Yi Qing Luo didn't see it, but the people in the world group who were protected could see it clearly, especially when they saw the provocative gaze which the overlord shot out. They were all stunned, all right. Had the overlord become so childish? Yin Xiao, he was just about to open her mouth to tell Yi Qing Luo about this matter. She had just opened her mouth. A cold glint flashed over Yin Xiao, who was swept by the overlord. How could he dare to open his mouth? Yi Qing Luo, who totally didn't know anything. After she calmed down, she hugged Dmo Xian's waist and raised her head to look at him. The Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace said that the Dark Array was specially set up to deal with you. You should be all right, right? Just as he finished asking this question, Yi Qing Luo felt that her waist had turned stiff. Following that, she heard Dmo Xian chuckling lightly. It's nothing. That little trick of theirs doesn't matter. I only spent some time to find the exit of the array. Yi Qing Luo expressed that his body's reflex reaction wasn't that simple. Dmo Xian remained silent. Could he tell Yi Qing Luo? In that dark array, all the checkpoints of the array were all transformed into her, Yi Qing Luo's appearance, and he knew it was fake. But looking at that face, he couldn't bring himself to do it. If his Lil Luo found out, he was afraid that he would not be able to get over this joke. Dmo Xian expressed that it was better to keep it a secret. Hence, Dmo Xian increased the strength of his arms as he hugged her tightly. He lowered his head and laughed softly beside her ear. I'm able to break the array. It's all thanks to Lil Luo's help. Otherwise, I might still be trapped inside. My help? Yi Qing Luo didn't understand. Chapter 3381. Yiqing Luo understood. It was her deal with the Ghost King. Let the Ghost King open the entrance to the Dark Formation. Although the entrance was destroyed by the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. However, at the moment when the entrance was opened, it still gave DMO Xian a chance to break the array. In that case, he had to thank the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace for stopping the entrance from opening. At the very least, this was the result. Xian returned to her side safely. Her deal with the Ghost King could not be considered a success, so there was no need for her to discuss the origin of her teleportation technique. Otherwise, he would have to rack his brains to come up with the whereabouts of the King of Thieves. Now, he had saved himself some trouble. How wonderful! Xian, do you know where did that Ghost King come from? Yiqing Luo turned her head away, avoiding DMO Xian's tender kiss as she changed the topic. DMO Xian smiled. Wait till you reach the upper realm, you will know. Yiqing Luo gave him a stare and snorted. On the surface, he seemed to be throwing a tantrum, but in his heart he understood. DMO Xian's refusal to say anything was for her own good. In the future, when he grew a little stronger, he would naturally understand. The battle in the land of illusion did not last long, because, according to Yin, Xiao, Yi, and the rest, that was secluded Darkness Palace took the opportunity when Yiqing Luo and DMO Xian were trapped in this illusionary land. Taking advantage of a situation, they once again launched an offensive to invade the East Wave continent. The attack this time was obviously different from the previous battle. The Palace of Darkness didn't seem to be affected by the defeat at all. Whether it was in terms of numbers or strength, they were as ferocious as wild beasts. More importantly, over at Gloomy Palace, they could even control demonic beasts to fight for them. But the East Wave continent was different. East Water Continent had just experienced a huge battle, and although they relied on Yiqing Luo and the others to obtain victory. However, they had also sacrificed a lot of profound practitioners, wealth, and resources. You haven't even had time to catch your breath. A great battle was about to break out. How could the East Wave continent compare to those monsters from Netherworld Palace? This sudden attack, adding on to the fact that Yiqing Luo and DMO Xian weren't in the East continent. The East Wave sovereign was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. However, perhaps the East Billow continent was not fated to die. Just as the Netherworld Palace was about to succeed and swallow the entire East continent. When the World Group had rushed over from the West continent, they had also brought along the representatives of the various powerhouses from the other two continents as they charged over valiantly. Only then did he manage to stabilize the situation. Even though the East Wave monarch really hoped that the group of young heroes in the World Group would be able to protect the East Wave continent. But he still told the World Group about his guests that Yiqing Luo and DMO Xian might have been schemed and kidnapped by the Palace of Darkness. Hence, after confirming Yiqing Luo's position, Yin Xiao, Yi, and the others went to save Yiqing Luo first. As for the rest, they would stay on the East Wave continent and fight against the Nether Palace. Therefore, the battle between the two experts did not last too long. After the two of them exchanged a palm strike, Ghost King looked at Yiqing Luo as his gaze turned chilly. I will come back to look for you. Then he slipped away. Gui Wu did not chase after him. He retracted his profound energy and walked over with a calm expression. He had no intention of explaining the Ghost King. Yiqing Luo's long eyelashes fluttered. Come back for her? Look for her for what? To inquire about the origin of the blink movement secret art? Why was it that? Ghost King was so persistent towards the blink movement secret art, just as she was deep in thoughts. Her cheek suddenly hurt. Chapter 3382. Yiqing Luo. Jealous over this? My Xian is incredible. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. Oh, perhaps he's back to seek revenge for today. DMO Xian pinched her face again. Yiqing Luo changed the topic again. Let's leave this place first and see what the Palace of Darkness is trying to do. A group of people walked out of the tomb. This time, Yiqing Luo walked out of the tomb without any obstruction. The illusionary land also slowly dissipated into the air following Ghost King's departure. Yiqing Luo discovered that this was an extremely ordinary barren mountain, whereas the surroundings were scattered with corpses. Corpses which were all dressed in Palace of Darkness uniform. This place was indeed Palace of Darkness's trap. Luckily, everyone in the world group had rushed over in time. After leaving the barren mountain, Yiqing Luo realized that what Yin Xiao Yi said about the great battle, which East Continent had no way to resist, was absolutely not an exaggeration at all. Now, even with the help of various powerhouses from various continents, they were unable to change the current situation, because Yiqing Luo saw the sky above Jade Dome City as it was an oppressive darkness. Faintly, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The most shocking thing was, in the sky, a huge black hole appeared. That black hole was at least half the size of Jade Dome City. From that black hole, groups after groups of dead corpse puppets kept walking out. They were all defective goods, but there were too many of them, wave after wave, and it was still increasing continuously. No wonder, even if the 4 continents joined forces, they still wouldn't be able to deal with it. After all, the other party was a monster, a tireless monster, and they were human. In front of this increasing number of monsters, which could not be killed at all, they would eventually deplete their profound energy, and deplete their stamina. Looking at the huge black hole in the sky, Yin Xiao Yi and the others were stunned. What's going on? Before we went to look for you, we didn't see this black hole at all. Yiqing Luo's expression turned ugly as her slender brows furrowed as she looked at the black hole in the sky, sizing it up for some time. She pursed her lips. Let's go back to the palace first. On the way back, Yiqing Luo tugged at Dmo Xian's sleeve and asked in a low voice, Xian, that black hole should be a large-scale teleportation array secret art. Palace of Darkness is so high profile. Obviously, they're not afraid of attracting the attention of the upper realm or the balanced historian. Which means to say, Palace of Darkness is already fully prepared. Dmo Xian's expression was solemn. Qing Wu is still active in the upper realm. She will find out the person behind the Palace of Secluded Darkness. Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned as she recalled that earlier, after Ghost King disappeared, the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace had disappeared along with the Land of Illusion. You know that the Palace Master of the Secluded Darkness Palace isn't the mastermind. At most, he can only be regarded as a chess piece. Mentioning the Palace Lord of the Secluded Palace, Dmo Xian's tone was filled with some disdain, but he can become the Palace Lord of the Secluded Palace on the surface. That means that his relationship with the person behind the scenes is not shallow. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased. I somehow feel that the Misty Palace Lord seems to know me. There's a familiar feeling. Before he could finish, her chin was propped up by the man. She raised her eyes and met with the man's alluring peach blossom eyes. His eyes were sparkling and extremely charming. No matter if you're familiar or not, he's not someone you need to know, so you're not allowed to think about him. All right, handsome man trap. She admitted it. When a group of people rushed to the palace. Chapter 3383. On seeing Yiqing Luo, East Wave Monarch went up to them in delight. Overlord, Madam Emperor, are you both all right? Yiqing Luo shook her head. How's the battle situation now? The East Wave Sovereign sighed and shook his head. This time, it's obvious that their combat power is completely different from last time. It could be said that the battle we won last time was just a warm-up before the next battle. The Palace of Gloomy Shadow's goal might be to test the East Water Continent's strength first, because they know that we've invited you and D Zun as reinforcements. But I'm more inclined to think that Secluded Darkness Palace's move is to first heavily injure East Continent vitality, then invade East Continent in one go. Yiqing Luo nodded her head. With the way the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was, she was also leaning towards the latter. Then now, The powerhouses and cultivators from the four continents have all joined the battle line. Over on the side of secluded Darkness Palace, are they still pursuing them relentlessly? Yiqing Luo continued asking. The East Wave Monarch's face was full of worry. Madam, you saw it too. I don't know how the black hole above Jade Sky City came about. There are so many monsters, there's nothing we can do. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly as she looked at DMO Xian beside her. After exchanging glances with him, Yiqing Luo held the glower flame fan in her hand tightly. I'll go over to take a look at the situation first. We must win this battle. Otherwise, not only will the East Continent be destroyed, I'm afraid the entire Nirvana realm will suffer. Perhaps it was because of this reason. Only then would the four continents choose to unite. The East Wave Sovereign's eyes were filled with hope. I'll leave everything to you, heroes. Yiqing Luo, DMO Xian, and the rest swiftly arrived at the battlefield. In other words, it was the periphery of the main city of the Jade Dome sect. In the surroundings, the profound practitioners from the various great forces of the various continents looked warily at the black hole in the sky. He was also guarding against sneak attacks from the Dark Abyss Palace. The entire battlefield was in chaos. When he saw Yiqing Luo and DMO Xian's figures, everyone recognized him at first glance. The World Group's brothers rushed over anxiously. Qing Luo. Yiqing Luo nodded towards them and immediately raised her head to look at the black hole. When did it appear? That black hole was surging with a frightening, evil aura. Groups after groups of undead puppets came one after another. Rupen answered with a pale face. About 10 minutes ago. Xian, let's go take a look first and see if we can find a chance to seal that large-scale teleportation array. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at DMO Xian. DMO Xian nodded. Rupen pulled her arm. Madam Qing Luo, this is too dangerous. It's okay. Xian is here. Yiqing Luo smiled at Rupen. If we don't seal up the teleportation array, even if Xian and I join in and exterminate wave after wave of undead puppets, it would be of no use. Everyone in the World Group exchanged glances with one another. In the end, he said worriedly, then you guys must be careful. Yiqing Luo gave them a reassuring smile. Following that, she held DMO Xian's hand and both of them moved towards the horizon. The two of them were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he was already close to the black hole. The closer they got, Yiqing Luo could feel that gust of chilly wind blowing towards her. The closer they got, Yiqing Luo felt that this black hole was much bigger than what she had imagined. In addition, a large number of undead corpse puppets came out in full force. Chapter 3384. Perhaps he sensed Yiqing Luo's discomfort. DMO Xian held her in his arms with one arm. The elegant sandalwood scent dispersed the smell of the dead corpses. Beside her ear was a man's deep and magnetic voice. How are you? Can you still hold on? Yiqing Luo shook her head in his arms. No matter, it's not the first time I'm in close contact with these puppets. Don't worry. DMO Xian didn't say a word. He only raised his hand and rubbed her head. No matter how ugly the dead corpses in front of her were, no matter how dangerous the surroundings were, it was impossible for them to survive. Yiqing Luo didn't have any other feelings. Her heart was filled with sweetness. As for this official battle with the Palace of Darkness, it was a battle between the Palace of Darkness and Palace of Darkness. And strangely, she felt extremely confident. Perhaps it was because he was by her side, so she could act according to her own thoughts without any worries. Then she could fearlessly walk on the path of the strong. She raised her head from DMO Xian's arms and looked at the black mass of dead corpses. Yiqing Luo no longer had that disgusting feeling from before. Her mind had regained its original clarity. She immediately carried out the fastest and strictest observation on the surrounding environment and the battlefield. Her vision swept past the battlefield. At the same time, her mind was searching for ways to deal with it. Suddenly, her gaze fixed on an extremely inconspicuous corner outside Jade Dome's Sec City. Outside the city, there were 3 circles of Palace of Darkness disciples surrounding it, as well as numerous magical beasts and flying beasts howling. Especially now, the appearance of the large-scale teleportation array gave Palace of Darkness the upper hand. At this moment, the Palace of Darkness disciples were excitedly cheering and waving their arms. But there was only that inconspicuous corner. The indistinct 3 figures weren't like the Palace of Darkness disciples, displaying an extremely excited feeling, but that kind of feeling as though they were isolated from this world, as though everything had nothing to do with them. Those 3 figures, 2 of them were extremely tall, and in the middle stood a slightly shorter person. He was dressed in Palace of Darkness uniform. Just one look, and Yiqing Luo felt that those 3 people looked familiar. "Ah Xian, look over there." Yiqing Luo tugged at Dmo Xian's sleeve and pointed to that corner. Dmo Xian took a look, and his voice sank slightly. The energy from the transmission array is coming from their side. Their eyes met. Then they nodded at each other. With a leap, the 2 of them rushed towards the corner one after the other. The 2 of them were extremely fast. Moreover, it was all unexpected, until he was close to the 3 people. The 3 of them didn't even have time to react. He could only feel 2 incomparably cold energies approaching him. The next moment, the short man in the middle was blocked by a red figure. The weapon in the girl's hand was pressed against the man's neck. As for the other 2, they were strangled by a large palm. "Oh!" The taller man struggled in disbelief. He could feel the power gripping his throat. It was so strong and violent that it felt like it was going to shatter his internal organs. Fear welled up from the bottom of his heart. How could he not be afraid? Both of them were being strangled by the purple-robed man with one hand. They couldn't even struggle free. "It's you guys." When Yiqing Luo got nearer, she recognized these 3 people's faces. The one whose glower flame fan was pressed against her throat was a lady. Yiqing Luo had seen her before. Her name was Yunu. And the ones whose throats were being strangled by Dmo Xian were Yuhan and Yuji. Chapter 3385. 3 Nether of the Ghost Hand, 5 Nether. Who would have thought that it would be them? 3 Nether could be said to be a core figure of the Palace of Gloom. However, if I remember correctly, Ghost Hand 5 Nether was not a member of the Gloomy Palace. Like Zhu Wuxin, he should be a partner of Gloomy Palace. Furthermore, compared to the Palace Master of the Nether Palace that he had met in the Land of Illusions, her actual power might be even greater. She speculated based on what Yuan had told her. Above this Ghost Hand 5 Nether, there should be someone called Venerable. That Venerable one was the big boss behind the scenes of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. He was also the big boss's partner. There was no way to know. Yiqing Luo, when Yunu saw the person who was threatening her life, she gritted her teeth and spat out 3 words. Under the black robe, that pair of malicious eyes stared coldly at Yiqing Luo, as though he couldn't wait to dismember Yiqing Luo into 1,000 pieces. Yiqing Luo's lips curled. "Tisk, long time no see. Miss Yunu missed me so much." Yunu's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. "Let go of me. It wasn't easy to catch you. How could I possibly let you go?" Yiqing Luo grinned as she shook her head. The dagger which was pressed against her neck was pushed closer. Yuhan, who was clutched by the neck by Dmo Xian, and her legs were suspended in the air. Her face flushed red as she struggled to spit out a word. "Yi, Qing Luo, you dare. Don't hurt her." "Oh, you're really infatuated." Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she gave an evil smile. "I'm someone who has never done a losing deal. Since you hope that I won't hurt your beloved ghost girl, then you have to use something to exchange for it." He was cold and angry, and because of the strength of his neck, he couldn't breathe. His feminine face had long since turned red, and he had lost his usual handsomeness. Hearing Yiqing Luo's shameless words, he became even angrier. Yiqing Luo expressed, she just liked it when others were annoyed by her, but couldn't defeat her. Oh, not satisfied? If she was not convinced, she could go and find a thigh that was even thicker than her thigh. Yiqing Luo's mouth was provoking 3 Nether's bottom line. His gaze floated to the sky above Jade Dome City. As expected, because the 3 underworlds were being controlled, the huge black hole in the sky was gradually shrinking. The undead puppets were still coming out one after another. But as the hole shrank, the number of them decreased. In the blink of an eye, the black hole had already disappeared from the sky. Yiqing Luo retracted her vision and looked at San Yu, who was in front of her. These 3 people, sure enough, it was the person who created the large-scale teleportation circle. For the Palace of Darkness to entrust such an important matter to the 3 Nethers, who were only cooperating with them, from this, one could see the status of 3 Nether in the Palace of Tenebrous Gloom. From this, it could be seen how much Abyss Palace acknowledged 3 Nether strength. However, although her Demotian's appearance had sealed the large-scale transmission. During this period of time, the undead corpse puppets that walked out had already become a black mass. They almost surrounded the entire Jade Dome City with 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. There were at least 10,000 undead puppets. Not to mention, there were also thousands of semi-finished undead puppets. Even if Tang Beiyuan managed to forge a weapon that could deal with the undead puppets, it wouldn't be enough. It would be very taxing to deal with so many undead corpse puppets. Moreover, the weapons that were refined were not enough. Summon all these undead puppets back. Yiqing Luo threatened in a low voice. Chapter 3386. Yiqing Luo's face was calm. Oh, since we can't turn the tables, then let's drag you to hell with us. As she spoke, her slender jade-like fingers moved slightly. The fan handle moved closer to Ghost Maiden's neck. The sharp blade cut through iron like mud. Just a slight touch. Blood started to ooze out along Ghost Maiden's neck. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into an evil smile as her tone was filled with ridicule. Your skin is well maintained, fair and glossy. Coupled with this seductive red, don't worry, it's especially beautiful. Saying that, she nodded her head hard, expressing her guarantee. Ghost Maiden's features were twisted from the pain, but she was tough and didn't make a sound. But Ghost Maiden's bones were tough, but someone would feel heartache. Yuhan's peripheral vision swept past that red smear on Ghost Maiden's neck, and his eyes seemed to be covered by this smear of red. He gritted his teeth as he roared angrily. Yiqing Luo, you dare to hurt Ghost Maiden. I want your life. Yiqing Luo's face was calm as she turned to look at Yuhan and spoke calmly. Didn't she say that we can't turn the tables? Then what do I not dare to hurt? At most, we'll die together. Following that, her eyes were filled with ridicule as she looked at Yuhan, whose face was flushed red. You can't even save yourself, and you want my life? Yuhan was flustered. The more angry he was, the tighter his throat became. He continued to feel the breath of life leaving him. He opened his eyes wide as he struggled unwillingly. But where did he have any energy left? He wasn't willing to die. He couldn't bear to die. So you 3 Nether need to be clear of the situation. Now, I'm the one in control. If you want to live, or if you want to protect the people you want to protect, you can only listen to me obediently. 3 Nether's body was extremely tense, but there was no way to refute this fact. Ghost Maiden couldn't even struggle free from Yiqing Luo. Not to mention, the other 2 were able to struggle free from the Overlord. What on earth do you want? Yuji, who had been silent for a long time, shouted coldly. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she smiled. You should be very clear what I want. Impossible. We are only responsible for opening the entrance of the teleportation portal. We don't control the corpse puppets. So, we can't do what you want to do. Yiqing Luo's fingers moved again. Oh, if you can't do it, then what's the use of keeping you? Yuhan. Damn it. Threatening at the slightest disagreement. Can't you come up with something new? Yiqing Luo. Since threats are useful, why must you use your brain to think of new tricks? Do you have nothing better to do? It's not impossible. Yuji's voice was still calm. After all, from the moment he was captured, he had not struggled at all. If he could preserve his strength, he would naturally not feel as uncomfortable as Yuhan. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked at Yuji. Tell me about it. Let me go, and I will take the corpse puppet away from the East Wave continent. Yuji said. He said I not we. Yuhan and Yunu naturally understood the deeper meaning of his words. Yuhan immediately shouted, Yuji, what do you mean? This roar, that tightness on his neck became even more unbearable. He wanted to cough, but he couldn't. The hand which was strangling his neck, that strength, seemed to know clearly what he could endure. It wouldn't let him be strangled to death, but it wouldn't let him feel better. Yuji was expressionless as he looked at Yiqing Luo. With them as hostages in your hands, I will not escape by myself. At this moment, it wasn't only Yuhan who was angry. Chapter 33:87. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she looked at Sanyu with a smile, which didn't look like a smile. TSK, didn't Yuin say, did they the ghost hands 5 nether grow up together? Even if there were collisions between missions. However, they were still brothers who had gone through life and death together. He was betrayed so easily. Wouldn't his conscience hurt? It really was a plastic brotherhood. Yiqing Luo squinted her long and narrow eyes as she looked at Yuji smilingly, raising up one finger and shaking it. But I don't believe you. Yuji's expression finally had a slight change. He furrowed his brows and tried his best to remain calm. What do I have to do to convince you? No matter what, I won't believe it. Yiqing Luo replied decisively and smiled sweetly. A pair of curved, enchanting eyes seemed to be embellished with vast stars, dazzling and dazzling. However, no matter how dazzling it was, in the eyes of the 3 nether, it was a light that could take their lives. Yuji's expression instantly changed. Yiqing Luo laughed again. Rather than trusting you, I'd rather let him. Yiqing Luo pointed at Yuhan. Go give the order to let the corpse puppets leave, and you knew, be the hostages. She paused for a moment and lowered her eyes to look at the woman she had subdued. Of course, the most important thing is, Miss Yunu will be the hostage. Yuhan's expression froze. She gritted her teeth. I'll be the hostage. Let Yunu go. Yiqing Luo turned her head over and blinked her eyes. Her eyes flickered, showing her innocence. No. I don't believe her either. The anger on Spectral Maiden's face grew even more. Yiqing Luo, stop trying to drive a wedge between us. You are all meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered by me. Do I need to sow discord? Yiqing Luo's tone was filled with ridicule. I just don't believe in your characters. He let Yuji leave. Yuji would definitely disregard the lies of Yuhan and Yunu, and directly let the undead puppets invade Jade Dome City. Let Nethergirl leave? That was even more impossible. Don't be fooled by Yunu's love for Yuhan. But from Ghost's eyes, Yiqing Luo understood. Once the Nethergirl was rescued, it was impossible for her to fail her mission just to save Yuhan. Yuin had once said, every member of the Ghost Hands 5 Nether had their own ambitions. They all wanted to surpass each other and become highly regarded by the Martial Highness. Therefore, the only candidate was Yuhan, because Yuhan's feelings for Yunu were serious. Yuhan would never abandon Yunu. On this point, Yiqing Luo was extremely certain. She curled her lips, and her long and narrow eyes flickered with a hint of evil. You don't have a right to choose, so just answer me directly. Are you going to die, or are you going to take away the corpse puppets? Yuhan glanced at Yunu. His pupils contracted when he saw Yunu's fair neck soaked in blood. Yuhan gritted her teeth. Fine, I promise you. Take the undead corpse puppets away. Yiqing Luo nodded with a satisfied smile. That's more like it. Obedient babies can live longer. His tone was as if he was teasing his pet. Xian. Yiqing Luo took a look at DMO Xian. DMO Xian loosened his grip. Her cold body fell to the ground. Totally defenseless, his body crashed onto the hard ground. He groaned a few times as he panted heavily. That flushed red face looked as though he was going to stop breathing at any moment. Chapter 3388. Yiqing Luo's clear and melodious voice was extremely sweet, with a hint of a young lady's softness. But the words that came out of her mouth were extremely cold. "Oh right, there's more. After one incense stick of time, if I don't see you retreating out of East Continent, I will continue to cut off a part of her body." Pausing for a moment, the dagger in her hand made a few strokes on Yunu's body, until all the parts on her body are cut off. "I will wrap up her corpse as a gift and give it to you." Yi Qing Luo, Yuhan angrily rebuked. Cough, 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 cough. After the loud roar, the throat, which had yet to recover, gave a series of hurried coughs. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she gave an innocent smile. "Let me remind you now. The countdown starts." Yuhan clutched his neck as he panted heavily, as he stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. The current him, where was the previous cold as ice prince's temperament? He struggled to climb up from the ground, as his body was on the verge of collapsing. "How can I believe you? That after I bring away the corpse puppets, you will let Yunu go? You can only believe me." Yiqing Luo replied with a smile. Yuhan clenched his fists. His face was filled with anger. "You'd better not lie to me. If anything happens to Yunu, even if the heavens and earth are destroyed, I will drag you down with me." Yuhan gritted his teeth as he spat out his sentence, as he turned around and left. Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue as she teased, "Ayaya, what a touching love destroying the heavens and earth, dragging me down with you. Ah, Xian, I'm so scared. I'm here." DMO Xian knew that Yiqing Luo was intentionally teasing Yuhan, but he still played along as he spoke his mind. He was here. He would not let anyone bully his Lil Luo, destroying the heavens and earth, dragging Lil Luo down with him. Yuhan was worthy. DMO Xian's peerless face revealed a faint smile. That smile did not reach his eyes. It seemed as though he was mocking something. Sensing the man's unfriendly expression, Yiqing Luo mentioned Yunu as she smiled and leaned towards DMO Xian's side, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Imin, with you around, I have nothing to fear." After Yuhan left, the surrounding disciples of the Abyss Palace looked at the two of them with a dumbfounded expression. Their faces were filled with vigilance as they gripped their weapons tightly. His eyes were filled with anger and murderous intent. However, no one dared to act rashly. Without any explanation, he rushed over and captured their king. They still had a hostage in their hands. How would they dare to go up? Everyone in the Nether Tenebrous Palace didn't know that the Yu family's backing was comparable to their palace master. Moreover, they were not under the control of their palace master. If he suffered even the slightest injury, if the palace master blamed them, what should they do? Furthermore, the ones who dashed into the crowd, which was surrounded by the secluded palace's disciples and captured Sanyu, were the Overlord and Yiqing Luo. Even if the Overlord and Yiqing Luo didn't have any hostages, they didn't dare to go up. Hence, they could only stare at each other, paying attention to what the Overlord and Yiqing Luo were up to. Then, Di-Zun released Yuhan. Then, Yuhan left with a face full of anger. What's going on? Had they reached an agreement on some deal? Just as the secluded palace's disciples were in a daze. Chapter 3389. Secluded Palace's Disciples. They were in an advantageous position now. There were so many corpse puppets around. The Overlord and Yiqing Luo were trapped in their territory once again. Even if they couldn't hurt them, they could also hold them back and not let them join the battle. There was totally no need to retreat, right? But no matter how the secluded palace's disciples were howling in their hearts, they could only listen to the higher-ups' commands. The higher-ups said to retreat. They could only retreat obediently. Hence, Outside Jade Dome City, the majestic scene of 3 levels and 3 levels outside slowly disappeared. Jade Dome City finally saw the radiance of sunlight again. The happiest ones were the various powerhouses cultivators who were guarding on top of the city walls. They thought that a great battle was about to begin, and it was a great battle that they might not be able to win. They had not expected the enemy actually gave up. The various powerhouses' representatives' eyes were filled with stars, as though they were looking at the gods they worshipped, looking at the 2 big Buddhas who were surrounded by the secluded palace's disciples. They were indeed the overlord and the future madam. So intelligent. Capturing the ringleader first in order to capture the bandits was played to the fullest. Look, this was obviously a certain victory situation for the secluded palace. But because they had captured the 3 people from the secluded palace could only choose to retreat obediently. Not long later, the corpse puppets had all retreated to a distance of 100 meters away from Jade Dome City. There were only thousands of secluded palace's disciples left who were surrounding Jade Dome City. They were still surrounding Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo, looking at the corpse puppets retreating. Their hearts were filled with apprehension. Should they continue to guard Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo, looking for a suitable opportunity to save the 2 madam youths? Or should they retreat together with the corpse puppets? I didn't expect that Yuhan, that idiot, really cared about you. After Yu Ji saw this scene, a deep glint circulated in his dark eyes. Yu Nu's eyes were filled with viciousness, and when she heard Yu Ji's voice, she stared at him angrily. Do you think everyone is as cold-blooded and heartless as you? I'm cold-blooded and heartless? Are you sure that if the person who left earlier was you, you would really abide by the conditions and let the corpse puppets retreat? Yu Ji shot a scornful glance at her. That gaze seemed to be mocking her. They were all whores, so why did they have to pretend to be pure? Dark Girl's expression changed, and she turned her head away. Don't put me in the same category as you. The argument between the 2. Yiqing Luo naturally heard everything. However, her thin brows did not relax because of the retreat of the corpse puppets. On the contrary, her eyebrows furrowed even more. No, something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Yu Palace of Darkness had really gone all out this time. Clearly, he had made up his mind to conquer the East Continent. It was impossible for him to give up so easily. How could it be? The evacuation went so smoothly. As expected, Yiqing Luo's intuition was right. In the next instant, a huge tornado descended from the sky. All of a sudden, the entire Jade Dome City was filled with sand and stones. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. The sky was also covered with dark clouds, forming a dense mass of darkness. From time to time, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, crisscrossing each other. The retreating undead corpse puppets also stopped their retreat in the hurricane. Bang, bang, bang. A deafening explosion was heard. Following that, the ground started to collapse. Jade Dome City also started to collapse. Chapter 3390. Everyone calm down. Calm down first. Let's see what His Majesty has to say. Some people tried their best to maintain order. The representatives of the major forces and the soldiers participating in this battle all had different thoughts in their minds. It was just that he didn't have the time to express it. The ground of Jade Dome City cracked open, making it hard for everyone to even stand. Immediately afterward, the undead corpse puppets that had retreated 100 meters away actually began to surge towards them from all directions again. This unforeseen event, even the disciples of the Dark Nether Palace were stunned. What was going on? Why was there another plot twist? Everyone immediately looked towards Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. These 2 people were the backbone of their group. Everything depended on their attitude. As for Yiqing Luo, who was clasped tightly in Dmo Xian's arms, her expression was calm as her eyes were fixated on the direction where the hurricane came from. Dmo Xian's expression was the same. He was so calm, as if he had already expected this. It could be said that he had expected this, and it could be said that he had expected it, because Yi Qing Luo was very clear on how big the ambition of secluded Darkness Palace was. In addition, there was the existence of this profound jade heart within her body. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness would never give up this chance. After all, if the Palace of Gloomy Darkness failed this time, there wouldn't be a third chance. Therefore, when things turned around, Yi Qing Luo remained calm. However, what made Yi Qing Luo curious was he could ignore Yu Han's orders and forcefully order the undead corpse puppets to turn around and attack again. Who was the person who managed to snatch the authority to command the dead corpse puppets from Yu Han? From the looks of it, the person who came seemed to have a higher status than San Yu in the Palace of Darkness. Could it be the true mastermind of the Dark Nether Palace? Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes squinted in ridicule. A meaningful sneer flashed across his eyes. She lowered her eyes and curled her lips. It seems that someone in the Palace of Gloomy Shadows doesn't want you to live. The scene in front of him changed dramatically. Yu Ji and Yu Nu widened their eyes in disbelief. Now hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, both of their expressions changed slightly. If one had not looked closely, he probably couldn't tell. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head. If Yu Han is unable to complete the deal between us, then I must abide by the deal between us. She raised the handle of the gourd flame fan. The dagger, stained with blood, shone brightly under the smoke and dust. Her smile became even more enchanting. Miss Yu Nu, which part of your body do you think I should start from? Dark Maiden's face turned pale with fright. Nu, how dare you? Yi Qing Luo, if you dare to touch me, Yu Han. And Secluded Palace will absolutely not let you off. Secluded Palace doesn't even want your lives, so why would they seek revenge for you? Yi Qing Luo had a don't lie to me expression. Yu Nu stared straight at the dagger in Yi Qing Luo's hand. Don't mess around. Do you know who our master is? If you dare to touch me, you'll be slapping our master's face. Chapter 3391. Yu Ji and Yu Nu's faces darkened. Yi Qing Luo, how dare you insult our venerable one? You're courting death. The respected revered, in Yi Qing Luo's mouth, was scolded as a sinister rat. How could Yu Nu and Yu Ji accept this? They struggled and angrily tried to save face for their master. But when the dagger in Yi Qing Luo's hand came close again, the Dark Maiden's body stiffened, and the indignant words she was about to say were stuck in her throat. Yi Qing Luo still tilted her head as she gave an evil smile. It's just the truth. Why get angry? You should know that we women can't be easily angered. If we're easily angered, we will grow old and ugly quickly. Speaking of which, both the Dark Forces and the Palace of Gloomy Shadows have been targeting me for such a long time, and I haven't even seen that so-called venerable of yours. Don't tell me. He's just a mouse hiding in the dark and giving orders? Ghost Woman's expression darkened, but she was worried that Yi Qing Luo's hand would shake and accidentally cut her face with the dagger. Suppressing the anger in his heart, he did not dare to make a sound. Yu Ji pursed his lips tightly as he took a look at DMO Xian beside him, and then looked at the smiling Yi Qing Luo. His expression turned ugly as he opened his mouth. You are not qualified to meet the revered one. It's just an inferior realm. There's no need for the venerable one to step in. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose as she smiled again. Yes? What a pity. I'm afraid you won't be able to see if I'm qualified to see the little mouse you respect so much. She raised her head with a smile and looked at the tens of thousands of undead puppets charging back. Large groups of them surrounded them. The entire Jade Dome City was surrounded once again. Standing on the city wall of Jade Dome City, the smiles on the faces of the cultivators of the major forces were replaced with shock and disbelief. What was going on? Didn't these monsters retreat? Why did it suddenly rush back? Wait a minute. Everyone shifted their gazes towards Yi Qing Luo and DMO Xian's direction. In their hearts, all of them were anxious and uneasy. What should the Overlord and Madame D do when they're surrounded by the enemy's monsters? No matter how strong they were, facing so many monsters and disciples of Dark Palace, he would also be at a disadvantage. However, everyone's worries didn't spread to Yi-Ching Luo. Her expression was still indifferent, and her brows were also calm. A pair of indifferent eyes quietly looked in the direction of the Palace of Darkness camp. Beside the young girl, the tall figure of the man blocked the young girl completely. His purple robe fluttered even though there was no wind. The powerful and terrifying profound light surged around the man's body like raging waves, stacking on top of one another. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness did not dare to act recklessly. The atmosphere was tense, and the two sides were in a deadlock. A clear, girlish voice rang out. "Since the Palace of Darkness has sent reinforcements, why do you need to be secretive? Could it be, Your Excellency is the little mouse that I was talking about?" The girl's voice was clear and sweet. His voice had almost reached the eardrums of everyone present. Then, a fiery red flame flashed in the sky. The girl carried a black-robed man and flew into the sky. Her figure was as light as a feather. Even though she was carrying a man, it didn't affect her movements at all. The young girl's figure froze in midair, and just as she started to descend, clang! Chapter 3392. In mid-air, the red glow was like a blazing flame. It continued to spread out in the sky. Every single floating phoenix feather glowed brilliantly, extremely dazzling. That red steadily supported the young lady's falling body. Immediately following that, in mid-air, it spun in mid-air, sweeping out a billowing splendor. Amidst the dazzling, profound glow, everyone saw the red-robed young lady standing on that huge red bird's back. The surging, profound energy was like tidal waves as it dispersed around the young lady's body. Her single arm was holding onto a petite figure dressed in a black robe. Her gorgeous face was filled with smiles. "Yuhan, one instance's time is up, although you didn't keep to our agreement. But I'm an honest and trustworthy person, so I can't learn your thick skin." She raised her voice as she laughed lightly. Her voice was filled with helplessness. However, if the smile at the corner of the young girl's mouth had been restrained, perhaps this helplessness was more convincing. "How dare you? Yi-Ching Luo, how dare you?" Yuhan's figure leapt up from among those 10,000 corpses and puppets, appearing in front of Yi-Ching Luo. His expression was sinister as his deep, cold eyes stared deadly at Yi-Ching Luo. "Yi-Ching Luo, let go of Yunu. I'll be your hostage." "What do I need a hostage for?" Yi-Ching Luo waved her glower flame fan. That dagger which had slid out from the fan handle retracted and retracted at times. The dagger's edge flashed and retracted at times. She laughed lightly. "You're the one who violated our agreement first, so you should accept the punishment." I didn't." These words were almost squeezed out from the slits of his teeth. Yuhan's fists were clenched tightly as the veins on his forehead popped out. "I didn't regret at the last minute. But..." Saying this, Yuhan's voice paused. His fists clenched even tighter. His entire body's taut muscles could be seen clearly. Taking a deep breath, he stared at Yi-Ching Luo as he said word by word coldly. "The current situation, I can't control it." "Can't control it? What has this got to do with me? I only want results." The young lady's giggling laughter reverberated in the entire sky of Jade Dome City. The strong wind blew against the young lady's hair. Her hair was loose as her hair swayed. Under the sky, full of raging flames, it was as if it was plated with a layer of red light. The alluring young lady had a wicked smile on her face. She was like a ghost in a blazing flame, very bewitching, if one ignored the movements of her hands. This was indeed an extremely beautiful painting of a beautiful woman. Yi-Ching Luo's slender white fingers pinched the fan handle and shook it. The dagger shone with a sinister light. She gestured at Dark Girl's face and ear and clicked her tongue. "How vexing. Where exactly should I start?" "Yi-Ching Luo, Yuhan was infuriated as she howled hysterically. Immediately after, his profound chi surged, and with a leap, he pounced towards Yi-Ching Luo's direction. "Io, so scary," Yi-Ching Luo cried out exaggeratedly. The hand that was pressed against Dark Girl's face trembled a little. "Ah!" Yu screamed. Yuhan, who was rushing over, suddenly stopped in her tracks after she let out a miserable shriek. His face was steely green. "Yi-Ching Luo?" Yi-Ching Luo blinked her eyes innocently as she smiled and shook her head. "Who asked you to scare me? I'm a person. My hand trembles easily when I'm afraid. When my hand trembles, I don't even know where this knife will cut." Chapter 3393. Yuhan clenched his fists so tightly that his fingernails had almost penetrated deep into his palm. The string in his mind that was stretched taut was forcibly suppressed by him. He took another deep breath and gritted his teeth as he spat out a few words. "Yi-Ching Luo, you're simply too much." Yi-Ching Luo's lips curled as she spoke in a light tone. "No choice. Who asked me to grab hold of your weakness? With a hostage in my hands, even if I bully you, what can you do to me? Or rather," she paused and looked down at the man who looked like a god. She smiled and said, "You can also go and grab my weakness and use it to threaten me, right?" Yuhan. Damn it. If he was able to catch the Overlord, would he still need to be here talking nonsense with Yi-Ching Luo? Yi-Ching Luo smiled as her vision shifted back to Yunu's face. "How about this? I'll start from her ears." Saying that, she moved the dagger towards Yunu's ears. "You dare!" Yuhan roared in rage as the profound energy on her rose rapidly. At the same time, another low shout suddenly rang out. "Stop! Hand!" These two words actually caused the surrounding air to tremble violently. That voice was extremely loud, like a copper bell, so thick that it could penetrate through everything in the world. Immediately following that, an even more shocking burst of profound energy, with a shocking speed, passed through the serene coldness and surged straight over. It was a strange, powerful, and majestic power. It made Yi-Ching Luo's expression change slightly. The glower flame fan, which was pressed against Yunu's cheek, swiftly retracted. "Catch!" The moment her words ended, Yi-Ching Luo directly threw Yunu in her hands towards the sky, as though she was throwing rubbish. Following that, her figure swept upwards as she retreated backwards swiftly. Lil Luo. At the same time, when Yi-Ching Luo made her fastest reaction, DMO Shin's worried voice was heard from behind. She retreated a few steps and bumped into the man's chest. Her waist was locked tightly by DMO Shin's arm. The familiar sandalwood fragrance seeped into her nose. Yi-Ching Luo felt much more at ease. She had not expected. She had been on guard in the direction of the secluded palace, but neglected other places. Actually, on this battlefield, there was a third group of people. Just now, that voice of "stop" sounded somewhat familiar. However, he couldn't recall where he had heard it before. Yi-Ching Luo nestled in DMO Shin's arms as she shot her vision towards Yunu, who she had flung out earlier. In the instant that Ghost Girl was flung away, the terrifying, murderous aura that had suddenly surged out suddenly disappeared. From this, it could be seen that the owner of that power had come for her. Yunu, as expected, she saw something in front of her. Ghost Girl, who had been flung away, fell into someone's arms. That person was not Yuhan. Yuhan was still at least a dozen meters away from Ghost Girl. At this moment, he was stunned on the spot, his face filled with disbelief. It was as if he was scared silly. The person who was hugging Ghost Girl was wearing a black outfit and a black hat. A large black hat covered half of the man's face. From Yi-Ching Luo's angle, she couldn't see that person's face clearly. But Yi-Ching Luo had a very familiar feeling. This person looks very familiar. Netherworld, it's you. A surprised voice came from the side. Yi-Ching Luo was stunned. This name made her mind to recall that person whom she met when she entered the godless array and entered the 21st century. That person named Netherworld. It's him. Chapter 3394. Yuming hugged Yu as he lowered his eyes and stared at the terrified girl in his arms. Scarlet red eyes with a rare gentleness. He smiled. Are you all right? The ghost woman's beautiful face was filled with terror and astonishment. Her pupils continued to contract, until Yuming's gentle voice rang beside her ear. She blinked her eyes and fixed her gaze on Netherworld's face. When she met Yuming's scarlet red eyes, Yunu's pupils shrank as she screamed. Ah! She struggled and pushed Yuming with all her might. Let go of Yunu. Yuhan went up and stretched out her hand to grab Yunu as she locked her in her arms. That action was extremely barbaric. Yuming's brows creased as he looked at his empty arms as his expression turned ugly. He stretched out his hand and was about to snatch Yunu back. But Yunu seemed to have found a place to belong when Yuhan got close to her. She hugged Yuhan's waist tightly as she cried out with a wah. She was badly frightened. No matter who it was, under Yiqing Luo's strange and horrifying threat, and under the situation where she was almost disfigured and had lost an arm or a leg, who could still remain calm? Yuming's outstretched hand froze in midair. After some time, he retracted it stiffly. Yuhan patted Yunu's shoulder lightly as she raised her eyes and stared at Yuming coldly. What are you back for? Yuming didn't even look at her. Instead, he directly walked past them as he walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. That face, that pair of scarlet red eyes. Indeed, it was Yuming. Yiqing Luo. He called out Yiqing Luo's name as his scarlet red eyes glowed faintly. Yiqing Luo's lips curled. Long time no see. On account of Ming Mirror. Let go of Yunu. Yuming was as straightforward as usual, without any intention of beating around the bush. Yiqing Luo laughed. Yuming, after seeing such a scene, you're still so loyal to her? She raised her chin as she looked at Yunu and Yuhan, who were hugging each other in ridicule. Earlier, when Yunu saw Yuming, that terrified scream. The minute she saw Yuhan, she pounced into her arms. This comparison, Netherworld wasn't even a spare tire. However, Netherworld still had an expression that said, "This is my business. It has nothing to do with you." Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders. Similarly, the Ming Mirror is mine, and it has nothing to do with you. You cannot use the Ming Mirror as a bargaining chip to negotiate with me. Yuming's face darkened. That nether mirror is mine. Yiqing Luo smiled. Now it's mine. Yuming clenched his fists. His red eyes were filled with coldness. You are no match for the Palace of Darkness. With your strength and the help of Dizun, you don't need to get involved in the affairs of the Nirvana realm. You can live a safe and sound life. Why do you want to make trouble for yourself? He raised his eyes and glanced at the representatives of the major forces on the Jade Firmament City wall. He sneered. They have nothing to do with you. Whether they live or die has nothing to do with you, right? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she crossed her arms. Are you trying to persuade the Palace of Darkness? These words, take it as repayment for bringing me out of that plane and back to the Nirvana realm. Yuming's expression was calm. The Palace of Darkness is not as simple as you think. Yiqing Luo laughed softly. She lifted her leg and moved slightly. Her figure once again skimmed on a Qi Yan's back. She smiled as she looked towards Yuhan and Yunu's direction, and then looked towards a certain direction of the Palace of Darkness's camp. Chapter 3395. You're right. This group of people is indeed unrelated to me. I also have no obligation to help them. The expressions of the representatives from the surrounding forces changed slightly when they heard this. However, they cannot refute or bring out some noble sentiments to request Yiqing Luo to achieve the point of the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. After all, they couldn't do it themselves. To put it bluntly, they would unite and appear on the eastern continent. but for their own future. They could only join forces to get rid of Gloomy Palace. Only in the Nirvana realm could there be a future. Otherwise, after the Netherworld Palace succeeded once, it would eventually be their turn. As for Yi Qing Luo, it was exactly as Netherworld had said, with the D-Zune and the Imperial Palace. Even if Yi Qing Luo didn't interfere in this matter, he could also live a carefree life. At this thought, everyone's hearts sank. Hearing this, Netherworld's expression softened a little. I don't want you to die. What I said is the best choice for you. Yi Qing Luo raised her pink lips. Her long and narrow eyes looked at him with a smile that didn't look like a smile. But in this Nirvana realm, there are still brothers that I care about. She looked at the rows of extremely young faces standing upright on the city wall. That was the World Mercenary Group. Her smile became even gentler. In every continent, there are brothers whom I care about, and I can't possibly ignore them just for my own freedom. So, towards secluded Darkness Palace's conspiracy, I, Yi Qing Luo, will definitely interfere. Yu Ming's expression immediately darkened. Moreover speaking, Yu Ming, do you think that the Palace of Darkness will really allow me to be free and unfettered? Yi Qing Luo merely smiled as she looked at him. Yu Ming's expression turned slightly stiff as he stared at Yi Qing Luo in a daze for a moment. Yi Qing Luo continued to smile. Secluded Palace had never intended for me to be an outsider. Yu Ming lowered his eyes, unable to refute. Lastly, this Nirvana realm is guarded by my Xian. The Imperial Palace was the #1 palace in the Nirvana realm. Aren't you trying to ruin our Emperor Palace's reputation by creating this Tinin Palace? As the future mistress of the Imperial Palace, the Palace of Darkness and I are irreconcilable. Yi Qing Luo put on a serious look as she spoke, and immediately gave a big smile. So, no matter if it's for public or private matters, I must stand here. The Netherworld, he couldn't refute it, but he had to admit it. Whatever Yi Qing Luo said was the best choice from her point of view. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as she sat on Qi Yan's back, smiling as she looked down at him. Tiska, Yu Ming, you've finally returned to Nirvana realm from that place. Don't tell me you're still intending to be that rat lord's chess piece. Yu Ming frowned. His crimson eyes flickered. Also, you know that woman doesn't love you and doesn't have you in her heart, yet you still love her? Do you think that as long as you sincerely move her, one day, she will see how good you are and jump into your arms? Yi Qing Luo propped her chin as her fingers touched her pink lips, as her smile became even more devilish. But earlier when Miss Yu saw you, it was as though she had seen a ghost, so I feel that you definitely have no chance. Yi Qing Luo. Yu Ming's crimson eyes seemed to be burning with fury as he stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. Chapter 3396. Yu Ming. Suddenly, a delicate voice came from his side. The flames all over Yu Ming's face instantly turned cold. Even his body slightly stiffened, until that delicate voice called out softly, Yu Ming. Only then did he stiffly look towards the voice. He saw Ghost Girl raising her head from Yuhan's arms and looking at him with eyes full of grievance. The girl's eyelashes were still wet. Ghost Girl. Yu Ming spat out 2 words in a hoarse voice. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that just now. Ghost Girl's hand was still tightly grasping Yuhan's collar. Her voice was timid and somewhat aggrieved. Yu Ming's red eyes dimmed. His hands hanging by his side tightened a little, but his expression was still very calm, and his voice was still hoarse. I understand. It's okay. Ghost Girl pursed her lips. She was stunned by Yu Ming's it's okay, and didn't know what to say. She lowered her eyes and her head. From Yu Ming's point of view, Ghost Girl's head seemed to be leaning on Yuhan's shoulder, as if she was seeking comfort. Yu Ming's face darkened slightly. His clenched fists tightened even more. Ghost Girl was used to observing people's expressions. She could clearly sense the change in Yu Ming's mood, especially when it came to this spare tire who had grown up with her and was loyal to her. Her expression changed slightly, and she struggled out of Yuhan's arms. Yuhan frowned and was unwilling to let go. Ghost Girl gently pinched the back of his hand. She raised her beautiful eyes and gave him a warning look. Yuhan reluctantly let go of her hand. Ghost Girl slowly walked towards the direction of the netherworld. Her delicate body was so soft that it seemed boneless. She swayed as she walked, as if a gust of wind could blow her down. After getting close to Yuming, Ghost Girl raised her hand and hugged his arm. Her action was not considered to be crossing the line. She simply hugged his arm and said in a coquettish voice, "Yuming, I really didn't do it on purpose. Don't believe what that bitch said. We grew up together. You should know that I'm not that kind of person." "Not that kind of person?" Before Yuming could reply, a clear and resounding voice interrupted him. Yiqing Luo smiled as she looked at Yunu, as her long and narrow eyes squinted. No matter how one looked at it, this arc was extremely like a taunt. "Miss Yunu, do you think I said anything wrong just now? Don't tell me you don't love the netherworld. Aren't you using him as a spare tire? Or were you not so scared when you saw him that you didn't even dare to look at him?" The series of questions caused Ghost Girl's expression to turn extremely unpleasant. She hugged Yuming's arm tightly as she stared angrily at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo met Yunu's vengeful gaze smilingly. "Why? What does Miss you want to say?" Yunu knew that she wasn't Yiqing Luo's match at all. She gritted her teeth and averted her gaze. The expression on her face instantly became delicate and charming. She tightened her grip on the netherworld. Her breasts were soft against his arms. She opened her mouth delicately. "Yuming, don't listen to her nonsense. It's because I was frightened. You also know that I care about my face the most." She took the dagger and kept threatening to slash my face, to cut any part of my body. "I'm scared. I was scared and didn't realize that it was you." Not only did she explain how she was frightened when she saw Yuming's pair of red eyes earlier. Chapter 3397. Yuming's expression was very calm. Not much emotion could be seen. Hearing Yunu's explanation, he didn't know if he should believe her or not. He only shifted his gaze slowly onto Yunu. Then, bit by bit, he retracted his arm. Yunu's expression instantly turned pale. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at Yuming in shock, as though she couldn't believe it. A loyal dog like Yuming actually took the initiative to retract his arm, as though he didn't want to have too much contact with her. How could this be possible? How could Yuming possibly give up on her? This must be that slut's doing. Yunu raised her head abruptly as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo, who was stared at for no reason. "Yunu." Yuming's voice was very calm as he called out Yunu's name without any extra emotions. Yunu's heart trembled as she raised her head and met his gaze. She made the expression on her face become even more tender. "Yuming." Her voice revealed a tinge of grievance. Yuming looked at her as he spoke calmly. "Congratulations. You and Yuhan have a fruitful relationship. This has been your wish for a long time." "Yuming." Yunu was stunned. I and Yuhan. Together? Aren't you happy?" Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes as she listened. Damn it, wasn't this Yunu a villain? How did she suddenly change into the persona of green tea? Wasn't this white lotus a little too white? She knew that Yuming loved her deeply. She was together with another man. Yuming would definitely not be happy. Did she need Yuming to reply very happy before her white lotus heart could be at ease? Pooey. Yuming didn't need Yuming to reply. Yunu would be at ease. Yuming stared fixedly at Yunu's eyes until Yunu's heart started to panic. Then she heard Yuming's voice. "Amen. Indeed not happy, but this is your choice. I respect it." He smiled again as he raised his hand and touched his eyes. That scarlet red, I was sparkling with a demonic glint. "I'm originally a different species and can't always stay by your side. It's understandable for you to choose him." Netherworld's voice was still very calm. "So, it's time for me to quit." His line of sight shifted to Ghost Girl's hands that were frozen in midair. He pursed his lips and explained, We can't be like before. It's not good for us to be too intimate. But I've always treated you as my big brother. Yu's eyes reddened. Netherworld shook his head slowly. I don't want to be your brother. Saying that, he turned around and faced Yi Qing Luo's direction. His expression was still so calm and indifferent. However, his crimson eyes were filled with endless forbearance and anger. He squeezed his eyes shut and forced himself to give up. Yi Qing Luo, who was watching the show, sitting on Qi Yan's back. Naturally, she saw all of Shuang Fei's little emotions. TSK. This was a melodramatic, sadomasochistic romance. I'm really full of complaints. However, compared to those so-called loyal dogs, Netherworld was a little more rational. At the very least, he knew how to let go. He also knew that liking was liking, and they couldn't be partners who adored each other. Brother and whatnot. No chance. This was how a man should be. Yu Ming. Yu was shocked by Yu Ming's action of turning around. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.